Nui, kia koutou katoa. It's wonderful to see you all here. It is, well, it's the last meeting of this committee in this triennium. So that's, I guess, something to be acknowledged. And as I say, great to have you all with us. Before we get into it all, Api, can I call on you, please, to settle us into the meeting with a karakia? Or feel free to delegate otherwise if you want.
Yes, kia ora mata, ki no tātai. Whakatakatahau ki ta uru, whakatakatahau ki ta tūna, kia mā kini ki yuta, kia mā taratara ki tai. E hi ake ana te atakura, he tio, he huka, he hauhu, a ti hei maurua. Ko te amorangi ki mu ko tapai o ki muri. Te turutanga mahi pono te mari mana motu hake. Nā reira, hanga e te atua nā kauhau ki roto, ki tēnā mātou. Aka toengi atu wairu tapu, hei a whina, hei tohu a mātou mai katoa, ko I kuraiti hoki, tō mātou araki, āmane. Mai ri ora tātou.
Thank you very much. Api? Right. In terms of housekeeping, yes. Thank you for keeping me on track. This meeting is being live streamed on Council's Facebook page and recorded for viewing at a later date on your YouTube channel. In an earthquake, drop cover and hold. Should we have a little practice of that?
No.
Okay. If the shaking
Show
is,
us how, please.
the idea is literally you get down and you actually hold on to something seriously so that you don't shake around too much. That's what the hold bit is. Hold on to something. If the shaking is long or strong, when shaking subsides, leave the building through the nearest exit. Proceed immediately along Dalton Street, Tiffin Park, up onto Cameron Road. If the emergency alarm sounds, you should immediately evacuate the building through one of these exits, and the assembly point is on the Vortia Street Park there, behind the brand new flash real-time info bus stop that we'll be talking about later. So that'll be something to savour while you're out there. Emergency exits, as I said, are clearly signposted. Wharipaku, ki Mato, or ki, yeah, just around the right there, that way. All right, so that's the housekeeping. I think we have an apology from Lisa Faulkner. Are there any other apologies? I'm looking around the room. Daniel for lateness. Councillor Williams for lateness. Is there anyone online or anything else that we need to acknowledge? No. So, okay, so the apologies are, would someone move that those apologies be received? Thank you, Councillor Kerr. Would have a seconder? Councillor Taylor, all in favour?
Aye.
Anyone against? All right, any conflicts of interest? Oh, all right. We'll move to the next item of business, which is confirmation of the minutes of 6th June. Is there anyone present who's had an opportunity to savour those minutes that would like to move that they be confirmed as a true and correct record? Thank you, Councillor Price. Seconder, please. Yep. Okay. Councillor Van Dijk. And all in favour?
Aye.
Carried. Seeing if there's any matters arising out of that. Obviously a big ticket item, and some of the matters arising in terms of the reporting back on the refined routes, the business of today's meeting. All right. First item is a decision item, and it's to do with our public transport future. The paper is a brief one, and it's largely one I have to say that I've asked it to be included. Really is the, I guess, a check-in on the conversation we've been having over the last year. Before I speak to it and we invite questions, is there anything, report author Bryce or Russell, Katrina, that you'd like to bring to our attention regarding this report? No. All right. Well, look, as you know, we have a great champion for active transport around this table, Councillor Van Beek, and I don't think any of us are happy with where that hasn't got to, largely as a result of the cyclone. I've taken it upon myself to really champion in the last 5 or 6 years public transport, and we're in a much better place than we were, and I think actually light years ahead of where we were in terms of public transport, not just with the launch of My Way and its potential continued future, but through the step change in transitioning to the bidirectional network and what have you. But our wings were seriously clipped, just as one of my wings was recently clipped, by funding. And so what I've been conscious of the whole time is the issues of, alongside funding, capacity and alignment, whereby this committee sets policy, the regional council runs a public transport service, but it doesn't own a single metre of tarmac, doesn't own a single bus stop. It cannot be as closely connected to all of the communities that are served by public transport as the territorial authorities, and we have left Central Hawke's Bay and Wairoa behind. So far. So what I've been wanting to initiate was a conversation which we've had around the idea of a more regional approach to public transport management and delivery, really to increase that capacity. At the moment, and I've used this analogy in Hastings the other day, we at least currently have Richie McCaw and Dan Carter sitting over here, but they won't always feature in the team. And it's a lot to carry on 2 wonderful sets of shoulders, and that's not resilient. And so what I was really exploring through the December workshop last year is there a different way of looking at a more regional approach where each territorial authority that owns the rating assets and is more closely connected to its communities can bring issues to the table, assist in the sort of management level and delivery of more bespoke or targeted services to complement the fixed routes to serve their communities. So that if we have that structure in place, bearing in mind those entities actually own the assets involved, when funding comes on stream, we're in a position to really hit the deck running as a region and actually put public transport in the place that it deserves to be for our community. So we, at Councillor Taylor's suggestion, went down and it was suggested we go to actually speak to some of the councils. We've spoken to Central Hawke's Bay and we've spoken to Hastings, albeit belatedly, probably too late to be fair, and that's my fault, lack of runway. I met with Councillor Price and Mayor Wise last week to talk about this. And all we're really wanting to do, and I'm asking through this paper, is for a resolution to recommend that this committee continue that conversation in the next triennium, not to bind, as I think was Mayor Hazelhurst's concern, any future council to any funding, to any service, to any particular structure, or anything like that, but really just to continue, as this resolution puts it, to explore and discuss options for a regional delivery and management approach to ensure greater delivery capacity and alignment. So that's my ramble. And regional delivery models are obviously all in vogue. There's a lot of local government reform going on, but we can only control what we can control. So if there's a willingness and an appetite around the voting members of this table to make that resolution number 3, as paragraph 17, there would be budget requirements, but then we have technical advisory group members already retained by each of the territorial authorities as they stand, and it could be as simple as monthly meetings of, hey, this development's happening over here, or this community at Pakipaki, or this at Bridgepower wants this, or, you know, and we're actually looking in our annual plan, we could put a new bus stop over there, or that's getting converted into a one road. You know, it's just bringing those conversations to the table in a more active and coordinated way. And whether any of that happens and how it is funded would be all future conversations for everyone involved. So that's what I wanted to say in favour of recommendation 3. Questions, comments from others, please? Councillor Kerr.
I'm very clear on what Hastings' conversation was like. I'm interested in your thoughts, or for the other councils to share their thoughts, please. So just to clarify, Hastings was not positive in their response.
Sense that.
I think through you, Mr. Chair, we probably sat on the fence. There was some who said it's a regional council responsibility. We can't afford to put any budget into it. The appetite is there for the commuter transport, absolutely. But I think the gist of the general feeling was not negative towards the discussion, the exploring it in the future. But the budgetary side of it was a no.
Yes. Councillor Pratt.
I think you met with Kirsten and I. We're pretty similar to that in that we supported the investigation and keeping it on the books that we do investigate other options. Obviously, monetary is a issue or concern, but I don't see any harm with the recommendation number 3. Keeping it alive as to other options we can look at. I agree with what you said in the opening. We've made a lot of headway in the last few years, and to keep the momentum going. It doesn't say we're going to do it. It says we're going to look at it.
Do we have any input from Wairoa? And I'll come to you then, Councillor Van Beek. Nope.
Wairoa not here today.
Councillor Van Beek, did you wish to comment?
Yeah, I support the motion, and I think budgetary-wise, there may be solutions in the future for that, I think. It's the same as with active transport. We're in silos and not able to have this discussion together. We discuss it here, but the actual apparatus of the TAs and Hawkesbury Council are actually not working together, that we should. And I've always said, you know, active transport only can happen if we actually have a total strategy for the total of the Rohe, and that needs to be happening here as well. And I think, you know, Councillor Price, I agree. We need to, you know, I think we should support this, and the next referendum, whoever sits around this table, because there will be at least a couple of faces that won't be here, that we actually keep this discussion going. So I support it, absolutely.
Van Beek. Councillor Kerr, the no that I heard was to any commitment to any structure or to any funding. Was it a no to even having a conversation about those issues? I think you don't have a mandate to even support the Wave 3 as free.
Just some thoughts from me and our team, and this is nothing official, this is just my read of the room and comments over a cup of tea. Comments like, if we require moving a bus stop, that's actually easy, just as long as we have plenty of notice about the bus routes changing and we can move bus stops. If it's about getting us together more regularly, then is that operational or governance? And if it's operational, then the tag team come together. It was a real sense of, are we creating more work for a really stretched team already? And I'm reflecting on the Regional Council transport team and also our own. As you know, our district has been ravaged by Cyclone Gabrielle. And honestly, this is probably not a priority in the transport team's work program. So, like I say, that's not Hastings policy or anything, that's just my thoughts in conversation with colleagues and management. So I really would struggle to support this, but I am conscious it's the last meeting of the triennium, and I do wonder if this shouldn't actually be on the first meeting of the next triennium. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I'm going to put it to a vote soon, so I guess we'll find out, and that might be a fallback option. Yeah, I mean, just a response that I have colleagues who don't think public transport's our business. And we have people who are terrified every time it rains and wondering what the hell we're doing funding bus services when people might die in the next storm. And we have massive erosion issues. When we have massive biodiversity issues. And we have an incredibly rate-stretched population. So do not assume that public transport is safe. Regional councils don't have to do it. So I'm just thinking for the future, the more we operate as a team in this space and collaborate and think regionally, the safer public transport is. And that's really what I'm worried about. Who knows where local government structure is going, and that is by no means a threat. I have no intention. There's no vote on the table. But people do ask the question, and submitters to our public transport and our long-term plan ask the question, what the heck are you doing? Why are you even doing it? So it's not, it's something that presents similar challenges to our council as well, Councillor Kerr. It's like, we're stretched, we've got other priorities. Is this our business? But fundamentally for me, public transport matters. It matters a huge amount to our communities. It matters to our environment. It matters to our economy. It matters for social equity reasons. And my entire motivation here is trying to ensure a more resilient future for public transport. And that's why I'm really standing behind option 3. Did you want to respond to that?
Yeah, firstly with a question as to why Regional Council does public transport. I think that's something that it's important for the community to understand, that there is and I'm not sure whether somebody can explain it more correctly than me, a regulation and obligation for Regional Council to do public transport. So firstly, that's my question to the team, please.
There isn't.
Kind of.
No.
Through you, Chair. Yes, kind of. Someone in the region has to be the Public Transport Authority. That is the entity that contracts and ultimately delivers the service. The Chair is right in that that doesn't have to be the Regional Council. That could be delegated to one of the district or city councils or a blend of, but there has to be some body or some entity that is the Public Transport Authority. And as far as I understand it, and I say this with a big asterisk, as far as I understand it, the entity that is the Public Transport Authority doesn't just have to be one council, it could possibly be several, but down in Southland, for example, Environment Southland has delegated the responsibility of Public Transport Authority and everything that entails to the Invercargill City Council. And so they deliver that.
Thank you, and thank you, Mr. Chair. Something I'd like to clarify. When I said this is not a priority for Hastings District, I wasn't referring to public transport. I was referring to the energy involved in reviewing and changing how it's managed, governed and operated. So just to clarify, it's the energy involved in investigating change, not public transport itself. just thinking about resolving the infrastructure that sits alongside the public transport routes, whether or not we accept the recommendations as proposed, I'm actually wondering if we could add an additional recommendation along the lines of, when we do a public transport plan, can we make sure it includes both the routes and the infrastructure? Now, whether that needs to be a recommendation, but that would actually take away that disconnect between regional council designing the route and the TAs doing the infrastructure. I haven't got the wording precisely correct, but just wondering if there was support around the room or making sure both infrastructure and routes are part of the public transport plan.
Can I respond to that?
Yes, through you, Chair. Jack and I have had many conversations about this. Certainly no surprise whatsoever. The complicating thing is probably the wrong word, but if you look at it from a purist's perspective, the regional public transport plan is just that. It's about the network, it's about the service levels and so on and so forth. And looking at the legislation that governs the development of those plans, it's very much of that ilk as well. However, if we look at the approach that we've taken with this regional public transport plan, we're starting to move increasingly away from what I could probably say is a historic, and I can't comment on how long this has been going on for, but a certain disconnect between the development of the network and the plan and then the infrastructure requirements. What we've done in the development of this plan is sought to be a lot more collaborative, particularly given that we are staring down the barrel of a new network implementation. So there is a real need for us to work as closely as we can as we develop all of this with the TAG to make sure that the infrastructure is there. That is continuing, and we'll talk about that in a bit more detail in another paper. But equally, there is no reason why in future iterations of the public transport plan we cannot decide to turn it into a network and infrastructure plan. That is totally up to us. It's not in contravention of any piece of the legislation or guidelines. In fact, it would probably, I dare say, be looked upon reasonably favourably by NZTA if we have both of those in the one plan, and then ultimately, of course, the infrastructure element of that would go into the RLTP and respective LTPs. That ties it all up quite nicely.
Mr Chair, just thank you, Bryce, for that. Simply from a council's point of view, the more time we have to meet the plan, the easier it is to put in annual plans and long-term plans and make sure we have the money that sits alongside the changes. And it's as simple as that. Thank you.
I have a suggestion that we add to recommendation 3 these words, that we recommend to the committee for the next triennium that it continue to explore and discuss options. What the next committee decides to do is up to it.
It's probably an obvious conclusion from the option that's there.
Yeah, I know, but it's just making it more express.
Yeah.
We're not binding the next committee then.
Could you also add, where it reads, for a regional delivery management approach for public transport, including consideration of TLE infrastructure to ensure greater service delivery? So you could actually
Pick up,
Councillor Kerrs.
So what were those words, Councillor Taylor? Including?
After public transport on the second line,
Yeah.
to put including consideration of TLA infrastructure. Because I think obviously that it ties in with, CHB's interest is in the commuter express trial and the commuter transport. And I think the infrastructure that we strike when we get to Hastings and Napier is just as important to us as actually the getting from Waipukara or Waipawa to Hastings or Napier.
Look, before we move to a vote, I'd like to ask Linda if you had any thoughts or comments, and if any of the advisory members have got any thoughts or comments about this issue before.
Just 2 points for me. I do support the continued discussion. As officers have pointed out, that would be favoured, a long-term strategic approach to how you want to progress and continually improve public transport at a regional level. So we would absolutely support that. And as we know and have learnt, a unified regional view always stands yourselves in better stead when it comes to securing further funding. And would also as well support the integration of infrastructure. We've seen that to good effect in the Horizons region through their work as well, in securing additional funding for renewed infrastructure, particularly bus shelters, digital information boards too. So, and note as well the considerations about the financial implications for each of the councils, but support it in premise.
Any other thoughts or comments on the table? Well, what I'm going to do is move 1, 2 and an amended 3, which reads, recommends to the committee for the next triennium that it continues to explore blah, 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 blah. Sorry, that's shorthand for what those words mean. Or say, after the words public transport, including consideration of territorial authority infrastructure. You got that?
I've got some of it, yeah.
Well, we'll
Go
talk
back
about-
to the
yeah.
meeting notes. And,
Yeah, well, I can help you with that in a minute.
yeah, I wrote down.
All right, so that's what I'd like to move. Would anyone care to second that? Thank you, Councillor Van Beek. Can I have votes in favour, please? And votes against? If you have to vote against, that's fine.
I don't hear councillor Kerr at all.
I was, I
wanna put you on
will
the spot.
support, yeah, I will support the recommendations as amended.
Thank you. So that's carried unanimously, then, isn't it? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm incredibly grateful. I really am. All right. Your future is safe. And
Thank you.
it always was.
Yeah, I was just going to say, doesn't mean if it goes to the TAs it's not safe? Okay, fair enough.
That's Richie and Dan got dumped in the finish.
Oh, look, we'll always pull a rabbit.
They got a World Cup first, though.
Yeah, well, a couple of them. Right, public transport network implementation. That's item 2. Information item. Who would like to speak to this paper? Yes, item 5, sorry.
You know, Richie.
That will be me speaking to the paper. So, is that going on there? Okay, apologies for the grainy picture, we will get to a presentation soon. Also apologies if I happen to whip into a coughing fit, still getting over some sort of a flu or something, but see how I go. So look, I'll take the paper largely as read. This committee does not really require any background information on this. You're all very well appraised of the process we've been through and where we've got to. But now the plan has been adopted by the Regional Council and of course gone through the process with this committee. So now we are looking at the implementation of the network with the little asterisks. Funding dependent. At this point in time, we certainly think that we can fit the network at the current levels of service within our current funding envelope. We are, as I mentioned earlier, working really closely with Hastings and Napier respectively and the transport teams on that supporting infrastructure. The implementation of this network is more or less contingent now on that supporting infrastructure being enabled by Hastings and Napier respectively. Now, that doesn't mean shelters and structures and all of that sort of stuff. It means some form of a stop in the short to medium term, which could be a sign on a lamppost or a bit of paint on the ground or pretty much what we have for decent chunks of the network today. But we need some sort of supporting infrastructure there. We are looking at having effectively a drop-dead date late September, and that is really around whether or not that infrastructure will be able to support that. So that's just something to hold in your minds as we work through this. Now, at the last committee meeting, we said that we were going to go away and continue to engage with a few communities that were going to have quite a significant amount of change, Flaxmere being one of them, and Taradale as well. And we're going to bring a final network back to you at this meeting, along with a high-level communications, marketing and engagement plan, which we're going to talk through today. So in terms of engaging, actually, sorry, I'll go back to this risk matrix and management. And again, I won't read through it because I'll take it all as read. But these are all quite important elements for us to consider. Of course, more operational, but some of these could mean that we potentially have a few service delivery challenges, or we may face a few little hiccups on our journey to implementing this network. What I can assure this committee is that all of these are very well in hand. We are advancing, I guess, work and mitigations around a lot of these risks or areas of focus with quite a feverish pace. Because, of course, the year is very quickly running out of runway, and January really isn't very far around the corner. So now going to the network, Flaxmere in particular, we did place quite a bit of effort onto Flaxmere because they, of course, are having their one loop service removed, replaced with two new routes. So what did that look like? Well, we held a public meeting at Te Aranga Marae that we organised in collaboration with Te Tai Whenua o Hiratonga. But preceding that, we dropped the pamphlet that is set out in the paper in every letterbox in Flaxmere with those QR codes. People were able to go on. Oh, that doesn't help, does it? People were able to go on to the app, to the piece of software that we were using and using throughout the consultation, look at the routes in detail and provide some feedback. Some of the key stakeholders were engaged in this before we put this out to the public. So the likes of the Flaxmere Planning Committee, we presented this to Hastings District councillors in a workshop setting to get their feedback and their ideas. And also had some really, really good constructive conversations with Te Tai Whenua around what these routes may look like as well. Where we've got to with all of that engagement and all of that feedback is option 2, which will see this green route here, and again, apologies for the grainy picture. It will see this green route go down Omahu Road into Kirkwood and into the back of Flaxmere, and then it will basically be a straight run through the middle of Hastings. So much more direct route. In terms of straight line, we'll certainly go past the hospital, which will turn into a bit of a de facto hub, but it's just a much more efficient connection for the people of Flaxmere, but equally unlocks a significant amount of access to employment on Omahu Road as well. The other sort of tweak resulting from that is what you'll see is this kind of, I don't know, is it teal or bright blue line there. So what that has meant is to make that green route through Flaxmere more efficient and more direct for those users, we would have potentially cut out Mahora, Tawana sort of area. What that led us to think about and form up is effectively a CBD orbiter service, we could call it. So we're taking the route that goes through Camberley via the hospital and all that, and extending that down Pakawhai Road in through Mahora, so that connects that catchment, and that will basically just be a service that sort of loops generally around the CBD. You will see a dotted red line there that goes through Pakawhai. That is, at this point in time, a planned commuter or more of an express service. So that is a direct result of the submissions and the hearings. We did receive quite a lot of feedback around the need for some sort of an express service as well. So that's planned at this point in time, and that one is really going to be dependent on the funding envelope that we have as to whether or not we can enable that. The final large change is this orange route, which traverses Taradale, Tamatea, and to an extent Onikawa. So you'll see that the main change is sort of around here, where we've taken in Guppy Road and then coming down into Taradale and going to EIT. So that just increases the catchment of Taradale. We did again receive quite a bit of feedback through the submissions and other engagement processes around the need to service that sort of Guppy Road section of Taradale. I'll just pause there and I'll see if Russell's got any further things to add on the final network.
Yeah, just to add to what Bryce has said, the tool we use to get feedback has been very effective, and people have been able to place pins on it and describe exactly what their issue is. For instance, I'm in a wheelchair, I won't be able to get to my stop anymore. So we've been able to react to that. And also we've been able to integrate with the tool the actual number of passengers getting on at each stop, so we can see where we might have left a gap in the previous network. So I think we're pretty confident that we've got the routes in the right places. And the big thing, which is what Bryce is going to go on to next, is to take our passengers with us onto the routes, and more importantly in phase 2, get new passengers on board, which is the whole purpose of what we're doing.
So that does bring us very nicely to, as Russell says, this next stage, this communications, marketing and engagement plan. So this was one of the things that we said we were going to bring back to you at this meeting. What became really clear through the consultation and the community engagement and all of the conversations we had with the development of this plan and refinement of policies and networks and all those sorts of things, is we have a very diverse group of users, of current users, who enjoy the services. We have older persons, we have disabled persons, we have an increasing number of school kids, we have CBD workers, we have a vast array, and also a vast array of untapped. It became really, really clear to us that each one of those user groups will require potentially a slightly, or in some instances, significantly different approach to communications and engagement, so they can understand, appreciate the change that is coming, and then be able to use the service when it is fully implemented. Supporting that and sort of to the side of it is, of course, communities. We'll talk a bit more about those in a couple of slides' time. But as we lead into this process, the North Star, I guess, of this campaign is everyone on board. As Russell mentioned, it is very much split into 2 phases, so taking our current users on that journey of change. And it is worth noting when we say the current users, that is, of course, people who use the service right now today, but equally it could be people who would very happily or very easily be able to access the service once the changes are made. So having to think about those people in those areas, both geographic and user, is a bit of a complex task. And now phase 2 of this will be sort of from February on, and that will really be attracting those new users. So still baking in the network, engaging with our current users and making sure that we're refining any challenges that we may have, but then looking at, hey, what are the options? How do we market this to those people who may potentially be on the fence, or all of a sudden public transport is an option for them where it previously wasn't. And the other thing in terms of those objectives, that these have been built into 3 sort of core buckets, or high-level buckets, if you will. So there's a building awareness element to that. That's largely the communications and marketing side of that. So that'll be done through a range of different channels, be it traditional and or new, so Facebook, radio, newspaper, and those sorts of things. Supporting high needs groups. So as we've heard previously in this committee, people from the disabled community have come and presented to this committee on a range of matters across a number of years. Now, what has become really apparent to us through this engagement process is that community has quite a diversity of needs, but equally they really want to utilise public transport as a means for independence for them to just go about their daily lives. And so it's really looking at what level of support and engagement do those sorts of users need, and how can we help to deliver that support and deliver that messaging. And then there's preparing our people. So whether that's internally within HBRC and other councils, but also, of course, looking at preparing the drivers for the new routes, looking at service delivery changes and tweaks and improvements that are very easy, quick wins, and just making sure that the wheels are really well greased as we get towards that to that network implementation. So in terms of timelines, January 26, end of January 26 is at this time go day. So there's quite a bit to do before then. So we've engaged the services of frank engagement supported by Band to help us with this piece of work. So we're very aware that it's a huge amount of work. And I would like to stress too at this point that is something that has been budgeted for quite a period of time. So there's no additional budget impact whatsoever for that assistance. So we've already done a discovery process with them where we've provided a huge amount of information that we already had, and really started to tease out what some of those risks, opportunities, user groups are, who's going to be doing what, and those sorts of things. That brings us a bit forward to the design phase of that. So really looking at the campaign collateral, stakeholder engagement planning, really getting into the detailed side of that and starting to actually deliver it. And then that, of course, flows into that sort of end of year Christmas phase, which will be a bit interesting, but that's really starting to green light the actual doing of this. Now, it is worth noting, of course, that a lot of these diverse user groups that we have, that we've talked about, they're going to require different levels of communication and engagement for different periods of time. So disabled people, for example, we will probably need to be engaging and communicating with them fairly soon for an extended period of time. School kids will be different in terms of starting that communication process. Same with workers, and the beat goes on. And then, of course, launch, big hoo-ha, new routes, all of that good stuff. And as we get into February, it starts to get into that phase 2. We refine, we continue delivering, and we attract those new users. Now, just going back to where we are today in terms of that discovery, what has also become apparent when we had these discovery workshops with Frank is that we need to understand in more detail how some of these user groups want to be communicated and engaged with. So we're in the process right now of organising some really targeted workshops to ask the question of how do we get older people or disabled people or whoever it may be on board for this journey of change. So really that's saying, how do you want to be spoken to, through which channels, and are there any new or innovative ways that we could encourage you and support you to be comfortable with the change that is coming. That is then going to flow into a really, really detailed engagement plan and will help to also articulate some of the tactics that we may develop, which could potentially be quite innovative maybe, or just a bit of a different approach to necessarily chucking up radio ads and whatever else. We will also be looking at having a presence at some of those new key strategic locations, such as airport, for example, really briefing some of the staff there to be the ambassadors for when that service arrives, and sports park, as well as things like hospital and so on and so forth. So look, I sort of won't labour this one too much because we have touched on it throughout this, but some of those key groups, certainly older people, certainly people with disabilities, and rangatahi, our youth, particularly those who may or may not use it to get to school, or could potentially use it to get to school. That is something that is going to be front of mind as we get into the detailed planning of this. And then we have to also look at specific communities as well. So as we know and as we've discussed, Flaxmere is going to have a significant amount of change. The approach to communicating and engaging in Flaxmere may potentially be significantly different to Havelock or Mahora, for example. And within that, we're also planning on doing these targeted workshops with those impacted communities. So we've already got one locked in for the 10th of September with the Flaxmere Planning Committee to tease out that exact question. How do we engage? Just a few of the key risks and opportunities that we can talk about. There are, of course, a lot more, but we sort of thought that these were probably the top 3 as we lead into this next phase of implementation. So vulnerable users not engaged or supported through the change, and that would be really quite terrible, to be honest, doing all of this work and then those people not being aware or not having the opportunity to engage in this process. So again, that comes back to these workshops that we're about to do now to understand that in more detail and tailor some engagement and communication to support them with that change. There's certainly potential for negative coverage, distracting from the overall campaign. So we've just got to be really proactive with how we manage that. Again, comes back to a really well considered and thought out communications, engagement and marketing plan, which we have significant confidence in with the support that we're getting. And school bus routes changing as well. We do know, and this committee has previously dealt with a number of Ministry of Education cuts or proposed changes to some school bus routes. And so that's certainly something that we've considered in the development of this plan. But of course, potentially come term 1 next year, the rubber may hit the road and we may find that we potentially have demand exceeding capacity, in which case we'll have to start making a few changes for that.
I wouldn't be too worried about that.
Sorry?
I wouldn't be too worried about that. That's a good thing.
It is. The one caveat to that is we need to have the budget to be able to support increased capacity. So that's the challenge. The patronage uplift is fantastic, 100% agree. We just need to make sure that we're able to actually get the rubber hitting the road, so to speak. In terms of opportunities, look, we do know that public transport has a perception challenges in Hawke's Bay and has for some time. This is actually a really great opportunity to have a natural reset point for that. That will take time, but it's a significant opportunity for this region, for this council and for this service. Better access to key locations, we've touched on it before. We're going to be going to the airport, we're going to be going to the sports park. The hospital is going to become a de facto hub. We're going to have great hubs in Hastings and Napier. Havelock is going to be on the main trunk, for example. And increasing independence for aligned communities. So again, coming back to disabled communities, for example, older persons, this is going to unlock a range of new opportunities and options for them. For example, a gold card user could get from Havelock to the airport between 9 and 3 for free. That's something that we've never had before. And that unlocks a significant amount of independence for those people. So that's a very high-level snapshot of where we're at. We are doing a significant amount of detailed planning and engagement, supported by Frank, and basically we're going to be into it. Watch this space. That's all from me there. I'll just pause and see if Russell has anything else to add to that.
No, I think we'll just see if there's any questions.
Yes, I have a number, and committee members may as well. One of the issues that's slightly troubling me is that we have reserved scope within our last meeting, 6 June minutes, to refine the routes and to present the final routes back to this committee for approval. And we have in our significance significance policy at the back of the public transport plan scope, make minor route changes without those being considered significant. And look, I'm not in any way challenging the merits of what you've done, but my experience in the RMA is that you can quite often not get submissions from people because they're happy with what you're doing, and then you move to the submitters that did say something, and then those that would have said something, if they'd known it was going to that, suddenly go, what the hell? It's going up Guppy Road? I thought it was going up Edendale Road, so I didn't submit. So every time you change something, you potentially always leave something behind. But that's the concern I've got, and the questions are twofold. One, can you please just very carefully take us through the changes between the routes that were in front of us in June and the routes that are in front of us now? Because I think you said for Hastings there's a whole new service, which is a circular service. And I want to understand for Taradale, it used to go a little way along, or is it Tukitapu Miani Road, and then up Avondale, it's going to go all the way around over to Guppy Road now and back up. Do we risk running back into the meandering coverage service that we were trying to move away from with some of this? Those are my questions. Are we outside scope? Are these major changes? What exactly are they? And are we sort of losing the original model? Could you just talk to some of that, please? But perhaps just start out by taking us, a bit more carefully through some of the route changes, because those figures I simply can't make sense of.
Have you got Remix up?
Yes. Yep.
And it'll be someone else's phone that's ringing. I don't.
Russell's got a much nicer.
Let's start with excuse me.
We're in now.
Just excuse me as I just get the map.
Mr Chair, while Russell's setting that up to be able to take us through your valuable questions, I have a very simple question I'm hoping Bryce would be able to answer for me.
Please, go ahead.
Bryce, given we have a start date early in January, and depending on how that rolls out, we may have to make some very early changes. Have we got enough space in our budget to be able to do that? Let's just say hypothetically we have more children on a bus from A to B and we need to support it with an additional driver or an additional bus. Is there enough surplus space in the budget to be able to pull those levers without having to come back to this table for an agreement to reduce a run?
I'll pass that one to Katrina as the with budget questions.
Correct. Through you, Chair, no.
Okay.
The short answer is essentially no, we
Right.
don't. We are utilising all of our budget to deliver the services that we have. If the services are overwhelmed, which is essentially your question, then we will need to come back to Council, first and foremost, HBRC Council, to seek additional funding, and that would be a conversation also with Waka Kotahi, which is unlikely to receive additional funding. So there are going to be constraints.
So through you, Mr Chair, if I can just follow up with an additional question. The logic therefore would be to move a service from A to B. Can that happen without having to come back to Regional Council, to Waka Kotahi, to this committee? I just want to see if there's enough flexibility. Let's say there's 3 buses running on the purple line. Can your team reduce that to 2 services a day so that the funding for that can go to a different line?
Yes, absolutely, we can make adjustments.
Lovely, without having
to come back for a council decision.
Is it 10%?
If we are adding levels of service,
More.
it's about 10% or more, but it's if we are adding significant levels of service, it needs to come back.
Right. Thank you very much. It's reassuring to understand there's flexibility within your team to be able to tweak.
Through you, Chair, if I can just extend on the tweaking bit and possibly answer part of your question as well, Chair. In that significance policy, we were very considered when we developed that because we were quite aware that, at the point in time when we started this process, we weren't quite sure that the routes were right for some communities. Part of that is it's potentially unreasonable for people to expect that they would be across the full implications of what those route changes might be if they just simply look at a pamphlet. You know, as a general observation, it's usually better if people are engaged with it and then they can go away and think about things and then sort of comment on them. So as we were developing this significance policy, we wanted to consider ways to retain a bit of flex and make any changes in a targeted and specific way. So we've put in there matters that will always be considered not significant. There's a few there. Matters that will usually be considered not significant are, one of the bullet points is changes to services, frequency or routes resulting from targeted and specific community engagement, provided there is no significant increase in cost. So therefore that ties into Flaxmere example. You know, we've dropped a letter or a pamphlet in every letterbox in Flaxmere. We've provided a public meeting. We've done everything we can within our power, short of literally door knocking every single person in Flaxmere, to engage in a targeted and specific way with that community on those proposals of change. And so that is...
That's a good answer, thank you. That's the one I was looking for.
Can I have a follow-up question?
Yep, I'll tell you what, I'm really keen to understand these routes. So can we just, okay, I'll go with the flow.
Sorry,
Are you finished, Councillor Kerr, that's answered your question?
just in light of what
Yeah.
Councillor Kerr said, I'm thinking of Bayview.
Yes.
Are you covering workshops there? Because I can see with their school bus, on day one, might need 3 buses, and just how we're covering that, really.
Through you, Chair. So we've already met with a couple of members of the Bayview community, and thank you, Councillor Price, for putting us in touch with them, because it is a very opportune time to have those conversations. Bayview is a bit of an interesting one in that we have always serviced it, and the patronage historically has been lower than what we had thought. The services, of course, are still going to be there, and the thought that then comes when we were thinking about this whole network and developing it further as well. If the general patronage has been historically low, we do know that they have some MOE school bus cuts. Therefore, should we look primarily at that becoming a service that may work around school times? So we've had a couple of conversations with some of those community representatives, and we're reasonably comfortable and confident at this point in time that the timetable lines up with school hours. Generally, the question, of course, will be that demand versus our capacity, and also where the current arrangements that the community has, you know, where they end up, how they function, and what that might look like. I think it's safe to say that as we work further towards actually implementing this, we'll keep those conversations going with those communities, and they'll be able to give us an indication of what the likely demand might be. So then we can go, oh, okay, we need to think about maybe tweaking here to move here, or whatever that might be.
Thank you.
Now, do you have
Yeah, just a quick one. Our contractual agreements with our provider, how flexible are we to go outside the bookends that are actually in that particular contract? Because the previous supplier, maybe the same supplier with a different colour or whatever it is, we had some major issues with.
So I'll answer that, Mr Chair. We've obviously been engaging with GoBus, the current contractor of the buses in Napier and Hastings, through this whole process. So they're aware and have had input into where the bus routes go, and I'll actually give some specific feedback around that. So they're more than happy to move their resources from one route to another, or bus drivers. An example is, for instance, when we are discontinuing My Way, we've got 3 drivers who are currently driving vans who will be retrained to drive the buses, or at least have the opportunity to be retrained to drive buses. So they're fully involved, and our contract fully allows for us to make those changes.
All right, so what I'd like you to do now, Russell, thank you for calling it, is just with your little cursor or something,
Right.
show us what's happened with the Taradale, the orange route, and then go back to Hastings and take us through.
Right. So
That's what we consulted on there.
Yes, this is what we consulted on. So just some key areas to note, and I'm not going to get the exact streets. The original one had us coming out through the back of Taradale South, and one of the key considerations, and this is when it came to practicalities, could we actually put buses down those roads? And that particular road has chicanes which are completely inappropriate.
Which road?
And this road here. And anyone who knows the area, trying to turn right onto this road here at peak time is near impossible.
Yes.
So almost ruled that out from an operational perspective. This area here remains more or less unchanged, but just members should be aware that currently the service goes down Church Road. So any road we go down where one side has houses and the other side is rural isn't a great use of a bus route because it only has half as much feed as it could.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The rest through Parklands remains pretty much the same as consulted on. But I'll just change it here because it's the Guppy Road area that changes. So we come down through Guppy Road, then back through this area here, and we did make a few changes just to stick to the current route. And I talked about a person who uses the bus who's in a wheelchair, who specifically uses a current stop. So we made a small tweak to keep it on the current route because the infrastructure is already there.
What you've just done to me though is I can't see what it was. So it used to go up Avondale sort of straight ahead.
Yes.
I can't reconcile those two figures in my head, unfortunately.
Sorry, it is quite.
Just run your cursor on this map and where it's going now. Without, just plot the route. So if you're going along Miani Road now, east, what happens?
So if we, on this route, so we head down Avondale Road all the way down to Wharerangi, and then we make our way through to the.
Is that the new route or is that the consult?
This is the consulted route.
Okay, so just show me what the new route is on that map. No, don't go to the other map. Just go back to that map.
Yes.
And
So
run your cursor over what you're doing now.
yeah, so we'll come down Miani Road.
Yes.
Onto Guppy Road. We come down to, this is where the New World is on across the street. We just come back one road here.
And then scoot.
And then scoot back through here. So we're covering most of it, and it's just this short piece here.
That's really just a section of Avondale Road that's cut out so that you go further east and then up Guppy Road.
Correct.
Instead. Okay, thank you. I did kind of understand it, I just wanted to be sure.
No.
Yeah, I don't want to sign this off without being really quite clear.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry if other people think I'm being pedantic. But could we go to Hastings now, please, and do the same thing?
Yes.
Just pull up the map of what it was, and then use your cursor to show what it will be. I think I get the bit about the top one going up to Omahu Road and coming down.
So yeah, this one is, what it had is both roads starting at the top of Flaxmere coming down and then diverging.
Yeah.
So what we've done, and just to point out just some things that we made some changes here, is through the consultation, we had a look at where the growth areas were going to be in Flaxmere. So we've got a growth here in Portsmouth Road, and we've also got another growth area here at the bottom of Dundee. So the most important thing about here is that instead of both routes following a similar path and then diverging, one actually heads north, covers, and then comes down the full length of Omahu Road, covering all the employment down here, which we've never had any coverage of.
Previously, it just cut through to Omahu Road north of the hospital.
So Te Whatu Ora Health New Zealand provided some really great information on origin, destination of where people live and work. In this instance, probably unsurprisingly, there's a significant number of people living in Flaxmere and just working over here on the Mahu Road. So we're going to create a great new connection for them to get to work.
I told you we had Richie McCaw and Ben Carter. No, but tell me about the blue,
circular?
the blue,
Okay.
yeah.
So previously in the consulted network, we had Flaxmere coming down here and diverging out into Mahora and then coming back down, so which isn't a great thing for people to have to diverge away from where they're trying to get to. So we saw the opportunity to actually join up this route, which previously was just basically on the south side of Heratonga Street, and create a loop, our own little circular or orbiter service, with a great opportunity to grow in frequency as we can get funding.
That was the one where I was thinking, is that within the scope of our significance policy, a minor change? What's the wording? Following targeted consultation. Are we happy that we don't need to go back to the public on that? Because that's actually not just a change to a route, that's a whole new service.
It's basically covering the previous areas but within a different way. So we're not cutting off anyone from a route or whatever. We're just going to get them there in a different way.
How within a budget that could only just afford 2, do you now manage to afford 3?
Yeah, so we've got an envelope. So for instance, we're taking 3 MyWay vans away.
Yeah.
We're using that budget to make this.
And I think that is really sensible in terms of
Yeah.
having that ring route.
Yeah.
The most popular bus in Auckland is the
Yes.
ring one.
Yeah.
And, you know, with My Way going, I like it. I just wanted to check we didn't have any kind of scope issues here. Does everyone understand all of that? And,
Yep.
I think you've answered my questions. As long as you're happy that that's within scope. As you say, it's not adding too much to the picture. It's just kind of splitting 2 into 3 to do the same
Correct.
thing slightly more efficiently.
It's basically, if you think about it like that green route through Flaxmere, with that change, the sort of Mahora link was dropped, and then the route that goes through Camberley picked it up. So you're still getting the same geographical coverage, it's just on a different route.
We've called it 3, no? Okay. All right, that's answered all my questions. Oh, no, I have one other question on the engagement plan, key stakeholders. You definitely engaged, as it see, the Taiwhenua or Heratonga in terms of the Flaxmere reconfiguration. Is there a mana whenua or Taiwhenua or, I guess, stakeholder group that would be part of this engagement before the new rollout? I'm looking at this page here, key stakeholders. I'm always loath to call mana whenua stakeholders as opposed to partners or something else, but I mean.
Excuse me. Yes, so I mean we've been really fortunate that we've developed a really good relationship with Stuart and Mare at Te Tawhenua or Heratonga. They have connected us up with their Taiwhenua partners in Napier. We have presented to them on a number of occasions and also to a number of Kamatua groups through Te Puni Kōkiri. So our intention is to also loop them, those groups, and sort of leverage those relationships that we've built in the development, design and ultimate delivery of this engagement plan.
So you discontinue the engagement that's already been happening with that part of our community. Thank you. Other questions?
Not a question, but a comment, if I may.
Sure, absolutely.
Just an acknowledgement and shout out to Russell and Bryce for the work that they have done, the connections and the communication, and I'm sure the teas and coffees and meetings that you have been to, because every entity I could think of for you to connect with, you have connected with. So from me and my community and the Hastings District Council, thank you for the constant seeking of absolute best what we can provide within, as you say, the envelope of funding. And I think where you've landed there is an excellent result. So thank you to you both and those that have supported you.
Kia ora, Mr Chairman. I'd too like to also say something similar. It's been a pleasure to support Russell and Bryce over their process, consulting with our iwi at Te Aranga Marae, Flaxmere, and at Oamahu. The Oamahu engagement was really beneficial. They talked about school bus transport and things like that. And I know that you got in touch with them, Russell. And I think the whānau out there appreciated your input. As far as our Napier whānau are concerned, I did get in touch with some of our iwi over at Marae Nui. And the comments that I got back from them was that they were satisfied with their bus transport schedule. So, ngāmi, kia ora.
Any other comments, questions? Right, in that case, I'm going to move that we receive the paper and notes, the public transport implementation report. The resolution back in June was that this would be presented to us. We don't have to approve it. But again, yeah, like everything that's been said, and I've said it before, I think you've done everything humanly possible and in fact beyond to avoid what happened in Wellington, where everyone thought they had a great public transport service, they tried to make it better, and there was an absolute outcry because people didn't understand it like what they had. And look, there will be some people who pipe up when change happens. That always is the case, but this is demonstrably better. You've done an extraordinary job. Thank you to Katrina, Russell, Bryce and your team for the effort over the last few years. It's been great. So, all in favour for the recommendation? We have a seconder, Councillor Kerr. All in favour?
Aye.
Aye.
Carried. Thank you. Regional Transport Program update.
Excuse me. So look, I'll take the paper as read and won't really spend too much time on this, mostly because the big thing on the table at the moment is the public transport network implementation, which of course we've just talked about. The one other thing I will spend a little bit of time on is the next regional land transport plan. Yes, we did just do one, and we're about to start another.
Yes.
That's really going to, I guess, get some steam next year in particular. As I understand it, the process is currently underway down in the ministry for drafting of the upcoming government policy statement on land transport. That will be due out for consultation, I believe, mid next year. The deadline for filing for the 2730 Regional Land Transport Plan at this point in time is sitting at 1 August 27, which is probably quite good because it gives us that ability to ensure that there's really good alignment between respective LTPs and regional land transport plans so we can stitch it all together and get it filed. The initial concern from the sector is that, of course, come 1st of August, you're certainly into a new financial year, but operational arrangements are planned to be made to just allow the continuation of maintenance, public transport services and whatever else. Thinking about our next regional land transport plan, Russell and I had a TAG meeting last Friday, I think it was, on a number of matters, but looking forward to the next regional land transport plan and just getting all of the TAG members to start thinking about how that might evolve from what we submitted in 24-27. And just taking a step back and something for this committee and probably the next iteration of this committee to consider in a bit more detail is that the cyclone really highlighted that what I would call that first link in the value chain in Hawke's Bay was really impacted. So that farm, orchard, gate to point of processing and then potentially onto market. That's the bit that had quite a bit of impact broadly. But what does that actually support? That supports access to and from productive areas for inputs, for product, and certainly for community connection as well. So that then naturally flows on to a question around, do we perhaps need to evolve the focus of the regional land transport plan to bake in that focus on that first link in the value chain, and also maybe to shine a bit more of a light on freight, both from a state highway lifeline link perspective, continuing again to advocate for ongoing investment in 2, 5 and so forth, but also does that need to increasingly continue to flow into really good maintenance programs on that first link in the value chain network, so on that farm to orchard, because of course it's great having really good state highways, but if the feeders to them aren't sort of functioning as they could or should, then it sort of slows down the whole value chain in the whole region. So that's the initial thinking. Certainly not to say that that anything has advanced further than that. From a process perspective, in terms of developing the land transport plan, I'm just working on getting some further advice as to whether or not we need to go through an investment logic mapping process. My sense is that we probably do not this time around, given that not much has fundamentally changed from our last ILM, in which case that means we can just get into the review side of the land transport planning, look at what we have in the current one, seek to refresh it, build in the activity management plans from all of the TAs and fold that up into an investment program. In terms of the active transport strategy as well, this committee will be well aware of the fact that progress on that has been reasonably slow. As we discussed at the last Transport Committee meeting, the planned changes to the RMA have a reasonably strong focus on spatial planning. That will, of course, require that the full transport system is involved in that or incorporated into that spatial planning, of which active transport will, of course, be a part. So it'll naturally get swept up in that new piece of work or that new future, call it whatever you will. So that will certainly be well and truly firmly on the radar. Again, I won't really spend any time on the network implementation because we have just discussed that at length. So I'll pause there, unless, Russell, you've got anything else to add?
No, that's fine.
Okay, look, just I guess an observation for me. It hasn't been my main platform, but I guess one of my regrets is that we haven't made greater inroads on active transport. Fully understand the reasons why. We did have a policy in our regional land transport plan, the one we just minted, let alone the one we're just possibly thinking about doing again, to investigate and pilot the conversion of key transport corridors in each of Napier and Hastings to give priority to active and public transport. We made a presentation from the DHB some years ago about a public transport road between Napier and Hastings, and it's always saddened me that we couldn't integrate active transport into the expressway. I think I understand the funding constraints, it's nothing to do with you, this is government policy. No frillies, it ain't a frilly. Like a frilly, it's poor transport system. So I will live with that regret, but I understand the realities of the world we live in. I just would like to remind the committee that when we adopted the Regional Land Transport Plan in 2024, we passed a resolution that there would be reporting to this committee on the investigations around Policy 2.5. And I haven't raised that again. I'm not in any way suggesting that this is a failure on anyone's part. There's been just so much to do. But please don't forget about it. And you might hear from me if you do. Other questions or comments? Councillor Kerr.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And it was, as you'd expect, music to my ears, hearing staff talking about that first part of the network, which is from the paddock to the processing plant. So just to remind you that the Tutera community was isolated for 4 weeks before they had roading access, Pātoka was isolated for 6 weeks. And we actually need the road network, not just for the road, for the access, but actually for getting diesel in to run generators to provide power, getting diesel in to get the machinery to fix the roads. So I absolutely support us understanding better where those weak links are. Some of it, if we can identify it's a weak link and we know it has a potential to fail, what's our plan B? Is there a different route that can be made more robust, or is there Bailey bridges that we know that we can get already in the district? So to me, it's not about investing and gold plating all our roads. We simply can't afford it, but understanding those networks really well, either from a state highway perspective in conjunction with local roads. In the past, when the Devil's Elbow has had an issue, we've had a bypass road. Unfortunately, that bypass road known as Darky Spur simply doesn't exist anymore and will never be rebuilt, I'm sure. So I would really like that whole of network, all of Hawke's Bay links to be understood. Where are those weak spots and what's our plan B or plan C? So I very much support that, thank you.
Comments and questions from any and all?
Yeah, just to comment, and Martin, to what you just said before, it's not because of lack of trying of the chair that we haven't achieved what we really wanted to achieve, you know. A 5-laning of the expressway would have been fantastic, and one of those lanes would have taken for active transport if need be, you know. You've tried that in your first training, so you don't beat yourself up too hard. But I like it if you actually keep the torch to our feet or to this committee's feet, which would be really good.
Okay.
And again, just to the staff, and I concur what Councillor Kerr just said, which is so vital for our economy here in Hawke's Bay, that we have those routes. But at the same time, I can chew gum, I can listen to music, and I walk to the library. We need to make sure that we are able to actually concentrate on those other things that are very important as well, and that's to do with livable cities, because we're actually bringing a lot of people together in a very concentrated area, and if you don't actually plan that well, it becomes a disaster. And I've lived in those disasters back in Europe where I could not move through Amsterdam easily to get to work or to my college until they actually unlocked it and did some really good planning. So with what is happening in Napier and especially in Hastings, where we have large concentrations of people, if we don't plan that well, it's got to end up really badly, because we're able to move freely, especially geographically how we live and the climate that we've got. I believe we can actually make it a nice experience rather than a really frustrating experience. So don't forget that.
Another very simple question, I hope. Bryce, you spoke about you didn't think we needed to do an ILM.
Yes.
Can you just expand a little bit more for me, please?
So from a process perspective, regional land transport plans are meant to effectively be built off an investment logic mapping exercise. So a range of stakeholders, TAG, the likes of Ian, probably members of this committee would get together in a room with the facilitator, and you would start to tease out the probably 2-3 main sort of challenges that the region faces from a transport system perspective. That would ultimately feed through into a, hey, if we invest and overcome these challenges, we can expect these benefits, and here's some measures, and so on and so forth. So we went through that process in December 2022. Then, of course, the cyclone came along, and we did it again post-cyclone. So fundamentally, since then, we still have the same challenges.
Okay.
Our network is still at the limit of its durability. Maintenance spend still is falling below where it needs to be. All of those sorts of things are still prevalent. So we still need to be investing in drainage, slip maintenance, whatever it is, as opposed to big new capital works. In saying that, I still need to have a few more conversations just around the specifics of whether or not we do have to do that ILM process for the 27 to 30 Regional Land Transport Plan. And I say that because this cycle that we're getting into is meant to be a rewrite cycle. But of course, we were a bit out of sync, and we did our rewrite for 24-27. So we could potentially be in a review and build cycle for 27-30.
Through you, Chair, I think we'll need to work quite closely with NZTA on that and get some guidance before we make any firm decisions.
Just a comment from me. I'm assuming that each of the TLAs are doing the ILM investigation on the problems that they have within their network and why we need the funds to resolve those problems, and just working through that anyway as part of the building blocks for our regional land transport plan.
It's my understanding that they would do that as part of their activity management planning process that will ultimately feed into the Regional Land Transport Plan.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'd just like to really encourage having an active transport plan at some stage would be fantastic. I think as a doctor, if I could bottle up exercise, I would be making billions of dollars. It just improves everything from mental health and even from a productive economy point of view. People exercise and physically active. It helps people turn up to work and our economies thrive as well. Obviously, I understand that the funding's really limited, so I guess it has to be on the cheap side of things as well. But I think there's many things that can be done in terms of that as well. Whether it's encouraging it through signs that are for walking, even things like no exit signs in streets, but there can be a walking thoroughfare. Even our signs and the way we do things is a very car dominant as well. So thinking how we can do it, even if it has to be a shoestring budget, really advocate for.
It's a real shame that, and this is a Wellington issue, I'm not leaving anything to this table, but if we looked at things holistically, the billions that you would save between now and 2050 on health, to say that you have to cost and trim all the frillies off a road that just keeps people sitting in cars, emitting, goodness knows what, not in a total sedentary position, is just so wrong-headed on a longer term overall economic and environmental and health proposition. I just do hope one day people will start to see that through the other end of the glass. But I really am just thinking out loud. It's not. That's just I guess, an observation for another place, perhaps.
Yeah, the return on investment is around $10-14 per dollar spent. So it's.
So we don't have any money, so we'll just spend it on cars. Okay. Any other comments, or shall I move that the report be received?
Happy to second.
Thank you, Councillor Curl. In favour?
Aye.
Anyone against? That's unanimous. So public transport update. Just great to see these patronage levels. Russell, over to you.
Mr. Chair, there are just probably 4 key areas that I'd just like to pick out of the report. I think it's a very exciting time to be reporting these through to you because we've made some quite big jumps in how we're presenting public transport and how we're making people safer. So the first thing is that through June and July we installed CCTV into our buses, and that was through a grant from the Crown via NZTA that we also shared 50-50 with the costs of. So every bus, all 23 of them, have 8 CCTV cameras in them, 4 inside and 4 outside. And what I can report is that we've recently used them to resolve some antisocial issues we had, resulting in a trespass order on a particular individual. And we've also been able to resolve them in favour of a customer who had felt that the bus had gone past them without stopping, and the CCTV resolved that issue. So really happy that those are in place, and they're working really well. The second bit is the installation of our real-time displays, and I'll just, if this works,
We'll do a field trip.
we could do a field trip, yes.
Oh, you look good next to it in the media.
Oh, okay. Is that been released, is it? All right.
I can get this across here. Can you? Oh,
It's here.
that's great. Cool. So the real-time signs,
I can't see it.
okay,
Unplug and replay.
okay. Let's try that again.
Jiggle.
There you go.
Technical term.
We've been to the moon, just jiggle.
So great news. The 16 or so signs up. I think the last one at Taradale is about to be energised. This one is outside the health centre, and quite clearly to anyone looking at it can see when the next 2 buses are due to arrive. The little symbols up here shows that they're actually transmitting, and then these services are still a couple of hours away, so they're showing their scheduled arrival time. So the idea, of course, is to give greater assurance to the travelling public that their bus is indeed on its way, and if they know it's only 9 minutes away, they can pop away and jump into a shop and grab a drink or whatever they need. So this is a duplication of what's actually available also on your computer and on your phone as well. So those who are tech savvy already have access to this information, but this is just making it really clear and positive. So very, very excited about that.
A comment, if I may, Mr. Chair? I love the fact that I can go to Google Maps, it highlights the colour of the bus link, and when the next one is. Having travelled overseas, that's how we got around the big cities, and to see that IT operating here, I think is fantastic. So thank you. What a difference.
My question is in relation to that. How many users have you got now actively using the app?
Fortunately, through the chair, that is something that Google can't or won't tell us. So they won't actually tell us how many people are using their Google Maps to look up the transit question. So it's something that we're actively pursuing, but we just can't get that information from them. Carrying on, just the probably 2 other highlights. Firstly, the paper says it all, but we've had a significant increase in patronage over the last financial year with a 15.7% increase. And that's, so that takes us up to 565,000 people. 2 years ago, we were only doing 405,000, admittedly in a cyclone year, but we're really starting to regain the numbers that we've lost over the last few years, which is really exciting. My Way has plateaued, so we've found its natural point. And of course, we're going to grow the number of passengers with our new network. Also want to positively report on fares collected, which are now at 792,000. Believe it or not, 2-3 years ago, it was only 252,000. That's a result of, there was some cut price fares out there that were government initiated and cyclones. So we're really recovering our fares. Which is excellent, but still we've got a long way to go to get to where we were 5 to 10 years ago.
Sorry, those figures again, please, Russell, you just gave?
So back in 22-23, we were collecting $252,616 in fares.
I see.
Yep. So we're now at 792,000 2 years later. And just the final one, and it's a bit of a recurring story, but it's really important that we understand it, is total mobility. So total mobility continues to increase in usage, which is really good for users. And some of the impetus for that is that several years ago, users got a 50% discount on their taxi fare or their companion fare. Through a government initiative, it's now a 75% discount. So of course, it's now a lot cheaper to make travel, and more travel is occurring. But what that is doing is putting immense pressure on council budgets, not just ours, but across the country, and probably on NZTA's budget as well. So it is being reviewed, both nationally, and we may well have to have a conversation with the community shortly about what does it mean for us going forward? Can we continue to afford what has been a 13% increase in usage and an equivalent 11% increase in budget, which is way more than we have really allowed for. So we've got a squeeze on. Mr. Chair, that's all I really wanted to highlight from that paper.
Jude? Questions, comments? Councillor Taylor?
Just a comment, I guess, rather than a question, that there is still a lot of people in CHB are still unaware of the changes to the total mobility, and they are seeing a public transport rate in their rates bill. And if they haven't read the line in the booklet that came with the rates bill, then they don't know that it's for a total mobility that we've been receiving but not paying for. But in the line in the bill says public transport, and it's very confusing, and there's not a lot of people. I've tried to tell people, but I'm one person, and so I just think some element of getting that message down there. It is a small amount, but it's a small amount on top of a big increase.
So if it had said, for example, total mobility rather than public transport?
I doubt they'd know what it
wouldn't know what
was
that was
even
either.
then. Most of the feedback I get is that, and that's where maybe a review will be gratefully received, because the comment is, well, why isn't it Ministry of Health? Why isn't it ACC? Why isn't it, what has it got to do with you? And so that's basically we've had that conversation before, so just reiterating the unsurety that's not a word. The ignorance is too strong a word about what the total mobility public transport rate is for in CHP.
It's a worthwhile issue. I do remember Russell wrote a most excellent email to Councillor Foley when he raised that issue about why doesn't ACC or the DHB or the Ministry of Education do all of this?
Through you, Chair, I think the message is getting out to some of CHB because we've had quite a significant uptake in total mobility in CHB. So those who are aware are certainly making use of the service.
Yeah, I think the point is that there's a lot that don't take up the service.
Absolutely understood.
And that's landing on your desk.
Yes.
Through the chair, one thing that we will need to do, probably part of the next LTP, is have a conversation with the Central Hawke's Bay community about public transport and total mobility. And so that's a very big opportunity to talk about that.
And just reminding also that the resolution we passed was that we recommended as a committee that both Central Hawke's Bay and this council include provision for the trial in their annual plans next year. Now, whether they do or not, it's going to be up to them. But once public transport proper starts, and I hope it will, it's a journey, and I guess people will come to understand it more over time. But very good point, Councillor Taylor, and a lesson for the next rates invoice. All right. Any other questions or comments on that paper? Okay. Could someone please move that we receive it? I've removed the last. So Councillor Van Beek, Councillor Kerr, all in favour?
Aye.
Anyone against? No, carried. Road Safe Hawke's Bay update. Who's going to speak to that?
I will, through the chair, the paper is reasonably extensive of what we've been doing recently, but I just want to point out that these mini road safety expos we're having at schools. So you may remember several years ago we had a big road safety expo out of Pettigrew Arena. It was a very expensive exercise, not only for us but for the schools to get their kids there on buses, etc. So with budget constraints in place, we're now going to schools directly and having what we call mini expos. And firstly, none of this would happen without New Zealand Police support. It is really them that are underpinning it with their resources, making this happen alongside Road Safe Hawke's Bay, FENS and several other organisations who come when they can. But you've listed there the schools that were visited. That represents about 1,100 a year, mainly year 11 and some year 12 students. And we were up at Napier Girls High yesterday, and they commented just how much easier it is us coming to them rather than them having to organise buses and get to somewhere central. And the engagement was very, very high, and I think we've left a really significant road safety message with those students. So we know we're doing the right thing in the right place, but it's very resource heavy on our side, but it seems to be working.
I'd like to comment on that, Chair. From police perspective, yeah, they've been surprisingly successful. The mini expos. I know we had the really big one last year at Pettigrew with a big captive audience each day. But the feedback I'm getting from our impairment team within road policing and our school community officers is the level of engagement is even greater with the students. I guess they're in their own environment, and the teachers are there as well. But yeah, less opportunity to wander off and get sandwich at Subway at Pettigrew Arena and things like that, so the actual environment of being in the schools is working well, and the smaller groups, they're actually able to take them through activities and getting really, really good conversations. So yes, more intensive staffing time required, but the benefits definitely of continuing that, the support.
Thank you. Are there any other comments or questions? David?
Just further to that too, I understand that at the last meeting, Craig Daly raised some issues regarding this, and we followed it up nationally, and it seems that the big road safety expos are now very much a thing of the past, and these mini ones are the way forward. There was an opportunity, obviously, with SAD involvement, Students Against Dangerous Driving, and we can perhaps look at progressing that a little bit as well. There's 2 schools in Hawke's Bay that have got SAD representatives. I think it's Havelock and Napier Girls. Thank you.
Through the chair, that's a very good point. Big shout out to the SAD representatives at Napier Girls. Yesterday, they really stepped up and helped us run the expo, and I think it was smoother than ever because of their involvement.
Hey, well, look, I'm up to being asked to go and rejoin a hearing that I'm in Invercargill at the moment.
Really?
Yes.
Okay, so we're in
Walking and chewing gum. What I'm going to ask is we do have lunches there. I'll come back to this paper in a second. And we've got to hear from Trek, and Daniel's online. Daniel, are you happy to wait till 12:30, or would you like to give your report now, in which case I'm going to ask someone to stand in as chair for that presentation?
Yes, unmute. Might
In the meantime, can someone please move that we receive the Road Safe Hawke's Bay update with thanks to the team for all of the good work that they do. That's Councillor Taylor, Councillor Price, all in favour?
Aye.
Aye. Again? That's unanimous. Daniel, are you with us? Okay, we're going to break for lunch. Does anyone mind if we break for lunch now?
I think that's sensible, thank you.
Okay, so we'll come back at 12:30.
Martin?
First from Daniel. You're Daniel.
Righto. You can hear me okay?
Not too bad.
Cool. So I've got a bit of an update on the rail part of the Trek Alliance scope. And I'll just, there's a couple of slides, so when the Trek piece comes up later, this will save whoever's presenting on that from going through it. Is that visible?
Yes, it is.
Cool. So yeah, there is still rail work underway, and the 23 damaged sites that were south of Hastings, they are, I think all 23 of them are complete. There might be the 23rd is underway at the moment. That one is, I think that's between Ormondville and Takapau. But that will get most of our damage south of Hastings done. There is still some work on replacing ballast that was damaged in the cyclone. So when you get water flows and slips and stuff into the ballast, it contaminates it, and you have to replace it. So I'll just show you something in a second about how we're doing that. We also took the opportunity to improve some of our drainage systems and such through separate funding to replace some culverts. And as you can see in the note, it was only a modest number, but still gives us some better resilience for future, getting nearly a dozen high priority culverts replaced. Moving north of Napier, there's still no decision on Napier to Wairoa, but we have been keeping some of the where we have big embankments with large culverts in them. It's quite awkward work to clear some of those culverts, but we have been doing that, especially around Tūtera, to make sure that they're not blocked or vulnerable to future storm events. I'll go to the next slide, which is about the Tutakuri Waitangi rail bridge. So that's the one in the foreground. Work has started on the next stages of that. So that's where we the 2023 repairs. It's pretty much all of the bridge and the river. Is my cursor showing on the screen?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So all of these piers here were steel that were driven into the river, and now we've got scaffolding going up to do corrosion protection on them. So bare steel, and it's to make sure that they've got better life in the marine environment. We will also be, hopefully you can see these piers here, they're concrete, and there's a smaller gap. Just we had to offset the 2023 repairs to miss the existing piles that were potentially still in the hour and not visible to us. So we've got a 6 metre gap between these two piers. We're going to replace the 6 metre span and the adjacent 12 metre with a single span and remove that pier. So that creates less constriction within the waterway. And we're doing that so as not to collect debris on it, but it makes the bridge, these piers will be the most vulnerable ones to future scour. The 1931, 32 piles, they're much shallower than the 2023 piles. So that improves both the waterway and reduces the scour risk. And then the third piece is, and this is something we've been working a lot with Hawkesbury Regional Council in lots of different departments, the parks team, the flood modelling groups, also from the consenting side of things, and with several iwi groups about lowering we're calling it the river berms, both on where we've had, we put crane pads in for the 2023 response works, removing those crane pads, but also lowering the silt levels to what they were in 1930s. So you can see there's an estimate there of the amount of silt that's going to get removed. That increases the waterway. back to closer to what it was in the 30s. Over that last 90 years, it's built up quite a lot. So the piers are now far more embedded into the ground has risen around them since the 30s. As you get the constant flood interaction, it brings down silt and builds up the river berms. So yeah, that's been one with the environmental piece and working with HPRC and other stakeholders. That's been a lot of engagement there. That work's probably not going to start for a few more months, and we will do that once we no longer need the crane pads, once we've replaced the spans, because obviously we need to crane those in. And so that'll probably be happening, this stuff, first quarter of next year. I might just pause on that because I know there can be questions on this bridge. Just got one more thing I was going to show.
Do that, then come back to questions. Finish off, Daniel, then we'll come back to questions.
Cool, and hopefully I get this here. Oh, it's not showing up. Let me. Is that visible?
Yes.
Yep.
Yep, bit of rail geekery here now. Something that you won't have seen, I don't know if you'll ever have seen in Hawke's Bay, is our ballast cleaner. So that's what this is. That's not in Hawke's Bay, it's working somewhere else. So where I mentioned that we had slip material, lots of flood material get over the railway track, that contaminates the ballast. So while this is called a ballast cleaner, it can also get used for ballast replacement. So we're using this. It's a consist that it's over 100 metres long. Once you get it's got a conveyor belt that cuts under the track, leaves the track in place and takes the ballast out, sieves it, and puts it on conveyors into these EF wagons. So all up, that's why it's so long. And then we take those wagons with locomotive and we discharge them at an appropriate spot. So we're doing ballast cleaning. I'm not sure if it's starting this weekend or if it's already started. So ballast replacing to get rid of that stuff that's been damaged by the cyclone. I'm also using something called track lifters, which is another way of approaching this when we have a bunch of specialist kit that comes in, lifts the track, allows us to transfer it out, dig out the ballast and redo the formation, rail version of pavement under the track and rebuild it. And again, those haven't been in Hawke's Bay before. I'm unsure whether you'll see any of this from public roads because the rail isn't always visible from public roads, but I just thought it's quite cool. Mostly we have it on the main trunk, main north, main south line, down south our main line. So yeah, it's neat that it's on the Army Napier line in the Napier, in Hawke's Bay.
Thank you, Daniel. Just before we go back to the bridge and any other questions, can you answer me this? What do you mean by ballast in a rail context?
Yeah, sorry. Or rail geek terms. It's the stone under the so you have the rail, the steel, and then you have sleepers, the ties, often pine sleepers. They hold the rails together, and then the ballast is this stone that's underneath. So it's literally aggregate that's loose, but it's placed and then packed. And we have something called a tamper, which is another big yellow machine, packs the ballast around the sleepers. It's how rail exists all around the world. So it's not like an asphalt. It's porous, water flows through it, but it also allows you to adjust the track, and it moves with the train. It's really flexible, so it's good for transferring the loads from rail through the sleepers and into what can often be quite soft ground underneath. It's a reason that rail can carry really heavy loads compared to road. The road will break up. It needs to be far more rigid, whereas rail can be heaps more flexible.
Thank you. Questions?
So, thank you, Daniel, and it's great news regarding the rail bridge, and especially the removal of the silt and debris that is actually existing under the bridge right now. Do you know by what percentage the flow will increase by taking that out? Because it's not only just the 18,000, there is more also on the road bridge, correct?
Yeah, so NZTA, they've got some debris. They're still packing cases and stuff. When you go under that road bridge, you still got debris. The NZTA Trek part of NZTA part of Trek, sorry, they're getting that stuff out. We've done the modelling and had it reviewed by Hawkesbury Regional Council. It will lower the flood levels at certain events. So your flood height won't be as high, like in a 1 in 50 year event at the stop banks in the 100 metres or so. We've got the actual stats. Hawkesbury Regional Council flood team does. It will be a modest reduction in flood levels at those stop banks for local. It won't go all the way up to Biani. For instance, it'll be going up 100, 200 metres upstream. But no, I don't know percentage wise, but it does have a positive effect on flood flows around the bridge.
Okay, I'll ask the flood team here.
And it is part of the reason we're doing it, but it also helps with reducing the velocity of the water and therefore the scour effect of the water going under the bridge.
Thank you.
Dawn, you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Daniel, just as a follow-on from with the bridge and the removal of all of the silt, is there a plan or a monitoring set in place? Because you're going to get deposit of silt depending on the amount or the intensity of a storm. Are Kiwi Rail in tandem with NZTA putting together any kind of monitoring plan so that you can gauge when the next time you might want to do preventative removal of silt?
Not yet, and something the QRL strip of land, it's obviously under the bridge. It doesn't go from memory far upstream, so it's actually Hawkesbury Regional Council land upstream that we're doing some of the lowering on. There's a bit of NZTA land that we're doing the same. So you've got three parties, lots of land. So that future agreement around monitoring and maintenance, that's going to need to be something that Wakakitahi, Hawkesbury Regional Council and QRL work on jointly.
Awesome, thank you.
Any other questions for Daniel? Well, thank you very much, Daniel. Do we move that report be received? I'm happy to move. Councillor Taylor second, all in favour?
Aye.
Aye.
You. Now, sorry, we're slightly out of order. We'll go back to you, Linda, now to hear from...
Are we going back to item 11 for Daniel?
The Trek report that you're sent is for noting only beyond Daniel's.
Does he need to do a verbal update?
I think you've given your report, haven't you, Daniel?
Yeah, look, on QRL in general, we're still moving, I think the forestry... Oh, you can hear me, sorry?
Sorry, what are you suggesting?
Just to make sure, Daniel, that he's done all his items before he needs to leave.
Oh, did I see? You need to leave, Daniel, do you?
I do at one. What was it? I know in the verbal report piece, I can give just a general of what QRL...
Yeah, please do. Go ahead, Daniel.
Yep, so we're still moving the forestry freight talked about previous, still general freight, and still looking for opportunities for still have capacity to move more. So any Transport Committee members or stakeholders that want to talk to QRL about capacity and moving freight, definitely there's that potential in Hawke's Bay and stuff we're constantly investigating. And through our ARNIP rail network improvement plan, there will be continuous work outside of what I've mentioned to both improve bridge resilience and general track compliance and resilience ongoing.
Okay. Do you have any idea when we'll have a decision on the future of Wairoa?
No, not that I can share. It's I've said a couple of these now. I'm hoping that it's
is it imminent?
Soon. I think I've said that before, so I won't say that one again. It's still, I've got to watch and brief as to what has to happen, but I'm not able to share a date,
Okay.
Unfortunately.
All right. Thank you for your time and for being with us, and all the very best.
Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. Now, apologies for being out of turn there. back to you that we needed to accommodate Daniel and tried to squeak him in before lunch, but, you know, here we are. Linda,
Thank you.
no show
I think
without
you're going
punch, as
to
they
ably
say.
share my presentation. While that's happening, we might jump into the slides. First slide up is the NLTP 27 to 30, which I think has been well covered early, but that'll be something for the new committee, the new Regional Transport Committee, to get the teeth into. Key dates to note there for the committee are that RLTPs need to be approved and submitted by 31 July 2027, and then they'll be adopted end of August 2027. So officers and NZT are already beginning to work through the evidence packs that will help us develop our collective submissions for Hawkesbury. Next slide, please. The Road Efficiency Group, so some members individually were maybe more familiar about this than others. The Road Efficiency Group is a collaborative group made up of members of RCAs, NZTA included, and it's also as well supported by the LGNZ Transport Reference Group. The primary purpose of this, and it was refocused through the GPS 2024, is to collectively lift how we measure, monitor and manage our collective assets. All RCA chief executives will have recently received a letter just outlining how they can access better quality and standardised data for their network. The dashboard provides quite a comprehensive view of how RCAs are performing, and that's across a number of different key metrics like road condition, safety, overall transport programme and service delivery, as well as quite technical things like roughness, etc. But as well, interestingly, as it allows you to compare your performance and your investment programme against your peers. The primary purpose of this is to help your officers make better long-term strategic decisions, to get better standardisation of our data sets as a sector, and also as well then to better inform your governors when they're making their budget decisions. Next slide, please. Traffic cones. Who knew we would talk so much about road cones? It's a hot topic for us all, and rightly so. Each RCA as well will have recently received a letter that outlines not only the priority that we all collectively place on road worker safety, but also road user safety, but the new way in which we will be moving collectively towards balancing safety with road users with efficiency and managing costs and disruption across the network. And that is the New Zealand Guide to Temporary Traffic Management. The Government Policy Statement 2024 made it crystal clear in terms of expectations of RCAs to achieve better value for money through their traffic management approach, while still keeping safety front and centre. So we will be working with all RCAs, so all of your council officers, to progressively apply this new NZGTTM to all relevant activities through the NLTF. Next slide, please. And just to pop in a little bit more detail, and this is something that the individual RCAs need to be kind of crystal clear on, there's some key dates being supplied to each of your councils on the pathway to adoption. There is the expectation that any existing contracts under the NLT that are funded through the NLTF, and then any future contracts, are contingent on utilising the NZGTTM. It has been around for a while, so it was first published in 2023, and this is one of our ways in which to ensure that the industry moves away from the previous COPTM, the Code of Compliance, into this risk-based approach. There is a lot of support available, so your council officers will be aware of the industry steering group. There's a lot of online training and support available as well that we can provide you access to, and to your contractors to help you on this journey. Pardon the pun. Next slide, please. we'll leave the cones behind almost. One other expectation is the publishing of the forward works planning. For not every RCA is required to do this. It is pertaining to the cities and the large metros. So within Hawke's Bay region, it is Napier City Council that has consistently published their forward works plan. The premise of this is to ensure that we have a coordinated approach across all utilities and infrastructure work that will be happening on the network. Ideally, and the ultimate aim is so that that can be coordinated to utilise and get greater efficiency out of the existing traffic management plans rather than us all trotting onto the network separately or one after the other. Next slide, please. So we'll move into more about the regional update now, and we have some fairly big news which I want to make you wait a little bit longer for, so we'll come back to the expressway and Waikari later. But we'll just touch on very briefly two key items here. The Napier Commercial Vehicle Safety Centre. We are just at the moment working through and finalising the property aspects before we get into the consent approvals for that. But that'll be an exceptionally good addition to especially hearing some of the intended priorities for future RLTPs on freight and also freight efficiencies across Hawke's Bay to support that. Importantly as well, it will support better safety outcomes too for the region. We're looking to start construction of the CVSC in late 2025, with it being finished a target completion end of 2027. And just noting, we have begun on the State Highway 2 Waipukaro revocation. We have started conversations with Central Hawke's Bay District Council on that to progress the initial point of entry for that project. Next slide, please. A new slide for us, and this is one that we're utilising across all RTCs across the MOTU to just provide some greater transparency across the investment levels, the spend that's occurring in each year on each of the activity classes in your region. So this one's a bit of a 101, and then we can get into details in the next RTC. But what you're looking at there is the longest lines, they're kind of greeny blue on here. That's the total baseline allocation for 24-27 for each of those activity classes. The dark coloured line is what's been spent to date. And then the hashed line, that's drawing on historical information, and that shows the approximate spend required to fully spend that allocation over the 24-27.
I was going to say to Matt. Matt and I got to mention, there is walking and cycling improvements. There is, and there's some.
It is there. It's not. It's not holiday. So for us, we kind of look at the exception reporting. So where is the biggest hash section and understanding why that is. By and large, variances tend to be around timing, weather, procurement, consent, property negotiation, and it really tends to be primarily around the phasing of work. But your teams will work closely with our investment advisors to give us an early heads up if we are expecting any more material delays there. You can see there that we've got some work to be done on the emergency works, that's the NIWI funding. They're complicated bridges that we're all dealing with more than anything else. So that's why there's a bit of a time lag on spend. And the same with the local road improvements, it's bridge renewals. And we're well across what's going on there with council and where the delays are, very valid reasons. Next slide, please. State Highway Speed Management, just a very brief update on this one. We're now moving into implementing the variable speed limits outside schools on the state highway network. In Hawke's Bay, you have 8 schools on the state highway. 1 is already compliant on the variable speed limits that are in place. And 7 will be treated before July next year. The designs are all underway at the moment, and we're just getting them programmed for when we can get them implemented sooner rather than later. Next slide, please. Just a wee update on what next year is looking like. Well, this year, construction season for 25-26. You can see there that we've got, again, some further work to get nailed down on the rumble strips and drainage, but there's a fairly significant programme of resales, but more importantly, lifting the asset quality on the rehabs, so another 10.5 lane kilometres of rehabs. We'll keep you informed as to where they are and how they may be impacting your communities. Next one. Okay. So the main event, we've built up to it. You will be aware last Friday we had Minister Bishop in the region to announce that the NZTA board had approved construction funding from the National Land Transport Fund for the 4-laning of the Hawkesbury Expressway between Taradale Road and the Links Road, Pacify Road intersection. Additionally, the board also approved funding to design and build a grade-separated interchange at the Pacify Road, Links Road intersection. So it's essentially an overpass for using regular language, and also another 500 metres of 4-laning beyond that. The project corridor investment case was also completed and approved by the board. I would just note as well that the Hawkesbury Expressway was the first Roads of National Significance project to be fully consented and to receive its full construction funding, which is something to very much celebrate. And I would like to acknowledge the work of our council partners, and particularly the regional councils, the Regional Council for their work with us on the consent process. It has been the fastest that we've ever moved through, and the Minister did note that as well.
Work,
so a big thank you for that, for working collaboratively and in partnership, and also for our iwi partners as well to take us to this point at such pace. It's not been straightforward, and we can't make enough of just how positive the relationship's been with you all. So thank you very much for that.
And that's going in a press release, correct?
That has been.
Oh, good.
Been and gone, yes. And the Minister did acknowledge it as well, as did both of the local MPs too. So they're well aware of that as well. So well done, thank you. It's been a real regional effort to get to this point. One other point that you might want to know if you haven't already is tolling is not being pursued for the expressway. We will move on to the next slide, please. And that's the Waikerie Bailey Bridge replacement. I think closures start this weekend, overnight, off the top of my head. And this is us swapping out the existing Bailey Bridge for the Acro Bridge, which is essentially a stronger and hopefully quieter bridge, but it does allow greater access for our overweight vehicles. Not every single vehicle, but the vast majority. That will be in place until the realignment is completed. Next slide, last one. So an update on this for the full realignment. We had an excellent collaborative signing with both of our iwi partners, an overarching partnership agreement with each of our iwi partners and a project agreement. And also as well now, we had our registrations of interest through our procurement process for the design and construct contract. We had strong interest in that, and it's now gone out to tender the 13th of August, so last week, 2 weeks ago. That closes in December, and we expect to award that contract early next year. Construction will then commence post that. So, of course, pending property. So really good progress being made on both of the big projects for the region. And just last slide, I've just got a couple of comments, if I might, while I have the mic. Chair. I just want to really recognise the role of the Regional Transport Committee and the role that you've played to get us to this point over the past few years. It's been a significant period for us all over the past 3 years, 4 years in this committee, and we should take a moment to celebrate the progress that has been made, not only in some of these areas, But the committee, from my perspective, I get to sit on 4 of these transport committees, so get to see quite a different flavour and insight across of all of those. And it's been really positive to see the Hawke's Bay Regional Transport Committee move into what I would say is a much more strategic and leadership position. You've led through a lot of challenges as well. Not only Cyclone Gabrielle, but as well successfully navigating, let's say, changes to investment priorities and to the government policy, and managing to do that while still maintaining a very significant level of investment into your region and still keeping what's important to your region front and centre. The RTC as well, I think, does need to just take some stock that your 2 regional priorities in your RLTP, you have successfully secured funding for both of those. And those 2 alone, outside of any other monies for the RCAs or NZTA, amount to over $1 billion worth of investment. And that's not to be sniffed at in the region. So just a moment of reflection, but also in celebration of everybody's hard work, because I know that a lot goes into the officers' advice and the planning that in here, but as well the robust debate and discussion to secure a good way forward for the region. So thank you, everyone.
Hey, well, thank you, Linda, and can I reflect that back to you, because we've been on a journey. There was a big sort of bump around an issue of speed limit on State Highway 5 at the beginning, right at the beginning of your tenure. But it wasn't just what you've just shared there, and I think a lot of that credit actually goes to the staff in terms of that strategic planning work as well. The relationship that you forged between us and Wellington and the navigation you've had to make around all of the politics that's changed, the attention on the recovery was just extraordinary. You know, getting the road to Wairoa open again was, at one stage, we weren't even sure that was possible. State Highway 5 is in a significantly better place with a big future program of funding. The expressway, yes. Waikari Gorge, a major triumph.
Yes.
And so just thank you for all the work you've done in mentoring us and being that relationship manager in such a positive, consistent, probably patient way, putting up with us and sticking with us. Yeah, so we owe you a huge debt of gratitude as well. So thank you, Linda, for your report. Thank you. Any other comments or questions of Linda? Yeah,
Just one through you, Mr. Chair. You weren't touching on the Narrowara Fernhill Bridge at all.
It's in the detailed pack.
Yeah.
It is referenced in there.
I just wanted to elevate, we've done our industry's done a survey on it, or on the disruption, and I know the pot's empty, but we believe just with 6 of the local operators, it's impacting about a $2 million cost of relocation to go round it per year, which is obviously always hard to recover totally. But the annoying part about that is 20% of that is road user charges that are out of the industry control. So it's quite hard to take up the fact we've got to divert anyway, and there's no real. It could be a 5-year program of when it's done, and we've got this impact of probably $400,000 a year direct cost to the road user charges for it. I don't know whether there's any recovery ability for that, but maybe this committee can aid by letter to the hierarchy to try and fast track some funding or maybe add some weight to it.
I think that's certainly an option the committee could look at. I would just note that there's been a significant amount of work done in trying to secure funding for that bridge. There is no additional funding available for it in this NLTF period. That activity class is fully subscribed. The team are still looking to see if, one, there are any other external sources of funding that could be sought. And also as well, at the end of this year, the NLTF does undergo a rebaselining to have a look at what is getting spent and what isn't, and if any funding could be reapportioned. but it would still need to be prioritised against every other bridge in the country. So that would be the hard part. I am aware of the impact. Mayor Hazelhurst and Deputy Mayor Kerr are well across it as well. And I am aware of the recent press release. There was a couple of inaccuracies in there, I might add. But yeah, at the actual point of the impact, I completely appreciate. But at this stage, we just don't have funds available, I'm afraid.
But potentially something for the next priority project, the next RLTP. So don't forget about that and bring that back to the table. I wanted to ask you a question for Mayor Little. My first 2 years here, I don't think we had a meeting where he didn't pop up and say that, what do you call it? Oil pitch
Yes, tall oil pitch.
won't work. Did it?
The 3 trial sites are currently being monitored, so that has been completed. And we are working with both Wairoa District Council and Whakatane District Council on that monitoring. There has been a few issues that they've been involved in helping us resolve. But at this stage, you know, I can't preempt what's going to come out of the final 2 years of that trial, but it looks okay at the moment.
Be a politician.
I'm sure Mayor Little, if he was here, would share his views.
He would have his views on that monitoring.
Yes.
And, yeah, leave that to him. Councillor Kerr.
The slide drawdown on funding, as governors that go back to our own councils, is there anything in there that should trigger us to chase our team? Or are you comfortable that this is reporting, highlighting, and an expectation by the end of the program time we will have spent the funds available? Because I don't want to leave any money in somebody else's bucket. Okay?
Rest assured, I would raise that with you, Deputy Mayor Kerr, absolutely. No, at this stage, it's for visibility. We can get into more and more detail, but I produce each of these for each individual council, and we can have more granular discussions at our one-on-one catch-ups. But if there is anything that you need to be aware of, I will certainly let you know. But your officers collectively do a good job in working with our team on that.
A further question?
Sure.
Your last slide, the Waikare Gorge realignment.
Yes.
Obviously very excited about this. It's been a weak link on State Highway 2 for forever. My question is actually regarding what will be the old State Highway 2 and the expectations on local government to pick that up as a local road, invest in the local road. Are there particular standards that NZTA must meet before handing over?
In short, yes.
Okay.
So those discussions have commenced with both Hastings and Wairoa district councils on the extents that we're looking to revocate is the term, but also as well in the level of service that would be provided for it to be fit for purpose for the use it would then move into, noting the kind of different traffic volumes. But yeah, that is a negotiation process that we're just kicking off with your council officers.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, a couple of 2 questions. The first one, there are concerns in Central Hawke's Bay. We a couple of meetings ago, I was delighted to thank you for the work that was being done on Main North Road at the northern end of State Highway 2, Waipawa, which unfortunately is now heading towards its 3rd lot of repatching or repairing, and it's bound to me to just follow that up with what is happening there and what can motorists expect.
And just noting that there was 2 sections treated, so the main section was very well treated, and then there's been a subsequent section, so it's not the whole one. Yes, we're acutely aware of the issues. There has been a number of attempts to resolve it. The level of service and the quality of the work has not met our standards, and we're working with the contractors to rectify it. So we are very much aware of the poor outcomes from those treatments.
Thank you. The other one came as a result of the spill on State Highway 2 the other day that closed the state highway between Waipawa and Otane. for about 18 hours, I think. And my question revolves around the official detour north was through Racecourse Road, through Ortani and back to the highway. The official detour, when you looked at the website, when you looked at the information that went out on Facebook, etc., was Alsthorpe Road, but unfortunately either local knowledge / Google / follow the guy in front of you ended up with most of that traffic using White Road, which has 2 right-angled corners, very swampy area in one part, and a main intersection with a school at 8:30 in the morning, with a primary school. My question, just that was the background to my question. So major congestion at that intersection. So we're just wanting to know, how do you decide? How do you? We decide those short-term detours, and how do you communicate those to the driving public, not the ones that are seeing it on Facebook? Because of course, Angela, they're not looking at their phone while they're driving.
It's a very good point to make. Thank you. Very good question. A bit in there, yeah, it was quite a significant spill and particularly challenging cleanup on that one. The detour route comes from a list of approved detour routes that we work with alongside the relevant RCAs and the police. The knock contractors alongside the police in the event of an emergency or a spillage or a crash select the detour route from that list. And they're required to drive it prior to approving the detour route for use. This one was not approved for HPMV vehicles. And then the signage goes out and we can move forwards with dealing with the emergency on the network while everybody should be using the approved detour route. In this instance, the approved detour route for a range of reasons was not successfully adhered to. And some of that lies with ourselves and our knock contractors, particularly around the signage that was deployed, but also as well...
Or not deployed, as the case may be.
Potentially. But also as well, the use of Google and other online systems may not have helped with adherence to that. We are reviewing how that situation was managed, and I'm happy to come back to you with a full debrief on that one, noting that it was a problematic one. I would just say that the crews were dealing with something quite extraordinary at the time, and the safety of the road users was front and centre, but we could have done much better there, I think, Councillor Taylor.
Just on that, I'd just like to add, police are having an internal debrief around that. As crash analyst too, picked up on the school crossing, well, kids crossing and stuff the following morning. So obviously applied a bit of assistance there, but certainly our comms team, advised by me actually when it happened, to make sure they went on the right process to get the right detour. It wasn't for us to decide. So yeah, I'd be really keen to have multi-agency debrief on that, just to make sure everyone's all joined up. So we'll reach out and invite other...
with the journey team. Yep, cool. Perfect.
Nice.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah, sure.
A strategic forward-looking question. Is there any funding support or signage support for some of these bypass links that are used more commonly? And I use Glengarry Road as an example. I know that along that part of the network, there are signs that are saying essentially this is a state highway detour. So it's on that road, which I know well. Is it common in other areas, and should it be something that we look at? I don't know who I asked this to the great.
We have some, yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, we have some permanent detour signs that, I think, College Road area, south of Te Hauki or Te Aoti, and also when traffic has to go middle road, when the highway is closed north of that, but they're the only two I can think of.
Yeah.
Oh, Sean's got...
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, we have worked well with NZTA in the past. We're working with them now on some of the other routes. There's a couple down on the southern end of the district, through Takapow, Ormondville Road, and then there's the Middle Road and a couple of others up here. Lindsay Road, if there's an accident between Waipuck and Waipawa, when that state highway gets closed. But really would be interested in being part of that debrief on what happened here and how we can make things better. And I'll be working with your state highway manager to try to make sure that we've got them clear. I think a lot of it is when we respond, we close the main highway and make people understand they got to go on a local road. But all of the other signage sometimes gets missed. So White Road, for example, wasn't signed that not to go there, it wasn't closed off. So I think that the application of the traffic management, I think maybe we could do a lot better at as a group.
Noted. Thank you, Sean.
Mr Chair, if I may add one comment to that, it was just a thank you to the motorists that did go through Otani, because I live in that village now.
Right.
And having the state highway traffic going both ways through a village, apart from what happened in that hour at the start of school, was the behaviour, the rest of the behaviour, apart from it, that congestion at that intersection was really good. No, they weren't speeding through the village, and that sort of thing. So a thank you to the motorists that did go through the village at the time.
Interesting conversation. Thank you for raising it. All right, any other comments or queries? All right, I'll move that we receive the NZTA report with thanks and gratitude. Seconded, Councillor Curl, in favour?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, now we'll move to our advisory reports, and I'd like to start with Api. Anything you want to share with us from your perspective?
No, I don't really have anything to share right now. No, I'm pleased with what has gone down today, and I'm pleased with what Bryce and Russell have done also over the past few months. So anyway, I'll take this opportunity just to say on behalf of our iwi and of course this committee, thank you, Martin, for your contribution as our chair. And I do understand that this is your last transport hui with us. So I'll take this opportunity to thank you wholeheartedly for your support and for your just for your tautoko and your manaakitanga to all of us. So kānei te mihi kia koe, Martin.
Thank you very much. Very much appreciated. It's always, as they say, a privilege to serve, and I mean that genuinely. Matt?
Nothing particular from Te Whātora, just we have September coming up for our organisation, but just reminds of the importance of transport networks and footpaths and people getting out and moving in terms of health. It's one of the best things you can do, get your body moving. And thank you, Martin, as well, for your share.
David?
Right, just a few minor things. We've been, as a district, the Hawke's Bay Gisborne district have been asked to make our views on a pending review of traffic fines and penalties. This apparently is underway at the moment. The association now has a new policy on tolling, which has all been agreed to by all the various districts. So when in fact they come into being, we do have a policy. And the only other thing of interest, of course, was that the move to go to the whole fleet on RUC. There's a lot of unanswered questions, and we're looking forward to the answers.
Yeah. Aren't we all? Thank you very much, David. And Angela?
Hi, yes, just real briefly, yep, incidents like that, so how to awful spill, what an awful job. That wasn't from me, someone else texted me that during it, yeah, anyway. While they're really inconvenient and all that, I think, yeah, value in spending time doing debrief across agencies, just so what can we do better, no blame kind of debriefs where we're looking for opportunities to obviously forge the relationships better and make sure that our operating model is good as it can be. So thank you in advance for participating in that. The more we do these things together with real examples rather than desktop stuff, I think it's actually really, really helpful. Just points out sort of what the failings are and then what we can do about it. So yep, happy to lead that one. September, it's coming up, isn't it, next week? Motorbike month, I believe. Road Safe Hawke's Bay maybe leading that, is that right? I'm not 100% sure, but anyhow, it's sort of motorbike safety month for us anyway. We're doing a couple of things. I think Ulysses are doing a couple of runs within our district. So yeah, Hawke's Bay and we're in Gisborne, I think, around the 13th September, don't quote me, but we'll be supporting that by having a presence. It's all about road safety and trying to ride safely. So we've had quite a few deaths on motorbikes, so definitely want to get some education out there. Also doing a little bit of impairment operation, so you'll probably be stopped and breath tested if you're on our roads any time of day by not just road policing staff. We're doing a bit of education with all of our other teams to make sure everyone can use the old Rager. Yeah, we have an ongoing problem with antisocial road users. Not so much here lately, thank goodness. I think they've found some off-road places to play, so that's been encouraged very much.
As long as they're not our stop banks.
Yeah, no, private property. So that's to be very much encouraged, and yep, we'll be congratulating them if they keep doing that. But unfortunately, our neighbouring districts are suffering quite a bit, so we're supporting and working across the country to try and manage that risk. With the media earlier this week, after last weekend's article, and they put a bit of focus around agencies and what we do with our roads, signage and things like that. So yeah, just making sure we've got our channels open to share information around damage to roads and trying to raise profile for public to report things. I mean, everyone here probably knows when they drive somewhere on their roads, there's skid marks everywhere. So yeah, trying to come up with a mechanism where damage in a safety kind of a way is conveyed through urgently for repairs or some sort of traffic management around that stuff. From me.
Very much, Angela, and for being with us again and taking so much time out of your busy world and life to do that, share that with us and keep our community safe. It is honestly, and I've said this before, very much appreciated and probably undervalued, I think, by a lot of people. They knew what you actually had to do and deal with, so thank you. Yeah.
I think it's substantial to report on our industry. It's still, it's obviously very happy with the allocation of spending to the infrastructure all around the country. Obviously respects the fact that there's only so much in the pot with some of the majors we've had with Gabrielle and that sort of thing. Generally speaking, though, most operators are running between 10 and 15% down on their revenues of what they would have been, and so revenues and tonnage year to date. The general economy, I think this reflects on the general economy and relates to that, but the last 3 to 4 weeks has shown an increase in that and some quite favourable new volumes that are coming out around the country in general. Obviously Hawke's Bay is very seasonal, so it's very hard to get an average across the year. So, but it still doesn't mean that there's not a lot of our operators sort of facing fairly financially tough times with lower volumes and higher costs. But that's probably the sort out time for some, or rationalisation time.
Yeah. All right, that's, I think, we've got to go to the follow-ups in the previous meeting, and I can't see any there. There's nothing on the agenda. Oh, sorry, yes. Here we go. We've done the network. Now, this was your suggestion, I think, Councillor Taylor. You want to do that now?
What I was suggesting it was, Mr. Chair, was just as you've just done with the advisory members, that we just get the opportunity, with the governance head on to say what we've been up to there. It would be good to get that tag brief as well as part of the Regional Transport Committee next triennium and to make it part of the process.
Put it part of the agenda.
Yes,
So, yeah.
yeah. Because I think one thing that has been missing for me in the past 3 years has just been, you know, hearing from the other TAs about the issues that they're having, or a highlight that they've had, or a you know, something like that. So I think it would be very wise, and I'm happy to start the ball rolling today with a quick verbal from CHB.
That'd be great.
In terms of, we have had that mainly thanks to NZTA, but also the NIWI funding, the roading recovery post-cyclone, $45 million worth, $11 million worth, $18 million worth of roading recovery projects, 30 critical roading recovery projects to be completed by the end of June that are currently being worked on at the moment. We were delighted to gain a 3-year window for some of that work, so a program spanning 3 years, not waiting for the annual approval, which basically means you're writing your letters or talking the process in July, August, maybe approval in September, your October before you're getting contracts on that, you know. So this 3-year program just allows us to be continuously rolling those projects and working through them, which is great for us. 10-year maintenance program currently being procured, and that's huge for us. It's a $100 million program that over the whole time, and the main thing for governance in that is the 25% local component in there. So we've asking the contractor who gets that will have an element of local employment, of using local subcontractors, because it's really a tier 1, 2 contract. But we've got so many tier 2, tier 3 contractors in Central Hawke's Bay that could, should, would be working on those projects. So getting that local, building that local capacity and capability over a 10-year time frame. Of course, if things don't go according to plan, we do still have an out clauses or rejigging in that. 10 years is a long time, but it's a great positive for our area. And just because it is the last RTC in this triennium, I also wanted to add that earlier this year we were asked sort of, you know, what did we see success being for us in the last 6 years of the triennium. Post-cyclone, we set up a transport committee. Because transport basically just became one of our biggest priorities for obvious reasons. And my success, I saw my success as being no longer needing a transport committee.
Nice.
And so hopefully in the next triennium there may or may not be a transport committee, but that was my idea of success, was to get in those programs, those projects. It's been great to see them come to fruition. And last word, just thank you to Sean and Ruben and Mark and the team at CHBDC, because none of it would have happened without the staff. Thank you.
Enormous challenges your district has faced. I think you had 10 times your annual roading budget worth of repairs before Cyclone Gabriel to do, or something like that.
Yes, yeah, it makes life interesting.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor, and maybe just take a note, please, the team, for setting the agenda for the next meeting. I won't be here, obviously, but we have RCA updates, can we call it that?
Yeah.
Road Controlling Authority updates, or something
Yeah.
like that. Councillor Kerr, did you want to do one for?
I can, and isn't it wonderful when I can just dip into today's newspaper and all of the facts and figures are there, so it's not like I had these in my head. In the past 3 months, there's been an incredible amount of work. Bridge rebuilds, culvert rebuilds, repairs, slips, road rebuilds. We've got a budget of $800 million. These figures just slip off the tongue now.
Yeah, man.
And we've spent $280 million to date. Completed and opened the really special Motio Puketapu Bridge. What a magic morning that was, with mana whenua and community partying through to the potentially the wee small hours of the next day. Mapapiro Bridge was opened. Taihape Road, 10 of the 11 major slips repairs have been completed. Waikua Gorge Bridge, that was really scary. We thought we had to close that to rebuild and isolate a community. We were able to investigate further and strengthen the existing bridge with minor road closures. So that's full Class 1 again, which is very exciting. So coming up, we've still got the Dartmoor Bridge, construction starts later this year. Rissington Bridge, construction starts September 25. And then we've got 77 more slip sites before December, end of this year. Looking ahead, Redcliffe Waiheke Bridge construction is targeted for this time next year. And Brookfields Bridge, we're often asked about this. This is a conversation that needs to be happening with NZTA in view of the four-laning of the expressway. So I'm not sitting here saying it is or it isn't. It's just still part of a conversation. And one thing I was having a chuckle over, I was looking at some reports from when I started at council, and once upon a time there was a big flood out at Waimarama and it was going to cost $1.6 million. Council wasn't sure how it was going to fund it. And I look at the probably $2 billion worth of damage on the Hastings district network and go, thank you to our community and our funding partners to help us get through. Short version, straight out of today's newspaper.
Councillor Price, not to be
I'll make it even shorter. I just use surrounding districts. Can you get it all sorted out so all the tourists can get into Napier? Because we don't have the difficulty with roads like you do in the rural areas. And I'd just like to thank everyone for the term. It's been very enjoyable. I think that we've made a lot of headway, and sad to see you go, Martin. And all the best. Thanks to everyone else.
Councillor Price, I'd like to actually hand the rako now back to a very long-standing member of this committee. I am advised that Councillor Kerr has been on this committee since
2010.
Anything you want to say in closing?
Yeah, I just did a quick search and I found the minutes of the my original meeting. So a shout out to David, who was at that committee meeting with me. A shout out to my trusted advisor, Jag Panu, who's been on my shoulder, with me right through. A shout out to Sean McKinley and Mark Kinvig, who were both at that committee as well. To make us think about how long ago it was, the mayors were Alan Dick and Les Probert.
Is who? Yeah, that's how long ago it is.
Yeah. And also a special honourable mention to John Emerson, who sat in Ian's role back in 2010 as well.
Wow.
The report was about cycling. Public transport.
Nothing.
It was the introduction of the concept of safer journeys and what that actually meant. So that's been in and it's gone. But the concept of every part of the transport network, the driver, the car, the road, is all still very important. Kiwi Rail spoke about the Napier to Gisborne line, and there was a report on coastal shipping. So some things don't change. The important things are still on our agenda. So some successes over the time, as Linda highlighted, the Waikari Gorge and the four-laning expressway are today's huge success factors, and I understand $1 billion of investment in Hawke's Bay. So that's something to certainly shout about. Just after my first meeting, the Matahurua Bridge was opened over the Matahurua Gorge, and we're about to do the same with the Waikari overbridge over the Waikari Gorge. Huge, huge, significant investments that will just continue to unlock Wairoa and north for us. I'm really proud of the port access investment, it's just a continual investment improving access to our port from across our wider region. Really proud of the iWays, which was a completely new brand that this entity helped support for walking and cycling. One for the ages, speed limits going up and speed limits coming down, and
Back up again.
yeah, and going down and then going up. You never satisfy everyone all of the time. I learnt that one clearly. And RoadSafe, changing it from an externally run organisation to be brought more in-house. Community licences, as Linda reminded me earlier, has been the support for community to deliver that driver licence training has been really invaluable, and that's very much a Central Hawke's Bay success story, I believe. Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
And
yeah.
yep. State Highway 5 investment and State Highway 2 investment. Both of those roads are much safer now than they were those years ago. Thank you to Martin as most recent chair. Thank you to my wider colleagues who are here now and have been with me along the way. To the staff, it's amazing. They just give and give in different faces, different people around the years, but they've always been so supportive of us coming in and asking, challenging and questioning and providing their best best advice. To my HDC staff, as always, thank you. To NZTA, there's been, I think, Jenny Chetwin? And then Emma and yourself. So I've served with three of us. Yep. And three wonderful women that when I've needed to go offline and go, excuse me, can you help me with something? They've been very supportive and honest, and at times said, no, you can't do that. Even though I go, but why? So thank you to them for their guidance. To everyone that's helped with the recovery of Gabrielle, we've still got years to go. Years and years to go, but I know that we will get there. And for me, so that's still celebrating the great stuff. And the one thing I still worry about is the level of investment back to TAs from NZTA, from the Crown, that will enable us to maintain our roads at the level they need to be maintained at. I think there's a standard of how much we should be investing in our roads, and I worry if we aren't able to meet that investment. And that's not a political jibe or anything, that's just saying that's my worry. It's not about building the new stuff, it's about maintaining what we have. So, over and out, after 15 years on this committee, I've loved nearly every minute of it. Thank you very much.
Which was the minute that Well, thank you, Councillor Curry. You've been a very thoughtful, diligent and active member of this committee, certainly during my tenure, and helped lift it to its level of operation. So, yeah, does anyone else want to make a closing comment, or should we head over to Api for closing karakia?
Just one quick word, Chair. Two things. One, this is also Bryce's last meeting for Regional Transport Committee. I'm absolutely gutted to let you all know that he is moving to Hastings District Council, so he is leaving HBRC. And so I wish him all the best. I'll be firing some darts at HDC for stealing one of our best staff members. But also, staff wanted to say thank you to you, Martin. You've been an exceptional chair. We love our job. It's tough. We don't have a lot of funding, and these two people here beside me, as well as the other two that are in the office, of three, I shouldn't forget, we've got Liz, who does amazing things with road safety, less budget this year than she's ever had, and she has just smashed it out. So, and we've got Xavier and also Maria, and Maria's doing road safety. I'm sorry, total mobility, but completely and utterly supported by a wonderful chair. We will miss you deeply, greatly, and we do want you to make submissions, because otherwise how will we get that support? So we wish you all the very best.
Thank you very much for that acknowledgement. And yes, I'm remiss of me, Bryce, I was too stunned by the news to be able to process it. Yeah, the amount of work you did on the land transport plan, public transport plan alongside Russell was extraordinary, actually. It's a masterpiece. It'll be an exemplar and be hard to beat, but the way it got us $1 billion. So big ups to you, and Lockham in the room before.
Yeah.
All the best, guys. It's been a pleasure working with you guys. It really, really has, and it's been wonderful to be part of this team. I've probably enjoyed this role as much as anything else. All the best for the future of this committee. Would you like to close us with a couple of...
Mori ora tātou. Before I hand the rākau back to you to close our hui, Mr Chairman, I'd just like to finish by saying I've been here 2 terms now. So 6 years ago when I came on board, I had to learn a lot, and I have learned a lot. And as we all know and realise that when we become part of an organisation, a committee, everything revolves around funding, monies. And of course, I've seen that, and you just mentioned that in your just now, Martin, about funding and all that. And of course, one of the things I must say that, and it was a few years of meetings and debating, and that was to do with the drivers' pay. And of course, 6 years ago when I was chosen to be on this committee by our Māori committee, it was the fact that I was part-time driving for GoBus, and that's how I got onto this committee. So I was more or less advocating for a pay rise, which did come, and when it did come, unfortunately for me, we ended up with too many drivers, and I lost my part-time job. But that's all good. So that was well over a year ago, and I was pleased to retire again. And so you know, that was one of the highlights, I suppose, during my time. The 4 lanes, and of course, our lady who's now the MP, she was pushing for that too when she was the Transport Committee rep here. And so we're all pleased that now we are going to have a 4-lane highway over here. And basically, you know, there's much more to this, and I appreciate my time representing iwi, although sometimes for me it can be a lonely place. But I know that many of you were behind me, backing me, so I knew that I had some support from the majority of you guys. So I do appreciate that. I do appreciate that. And once again, Martin, tēnā koe, you know, for your time. You may have been here before me, 2 terms?
I think 2, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So we came on together?
Yeah.
Oh, good, great. And so thanks once again. And to you, Bryce, oh, it's a shame. And I agree with you, Katrina, that, my God, what a... Yes, so been a pleasure. Been a pleasure working with you and you being part of this team. And it's been a pleasure working with most of you, because most of you have been here since I've been here. And so good luck, Bryce. And good luck, Katrina. Can you find someone suitable to replace her? So anyway, ka nuta mihi, it's been a great day today, so ka koe, Martin.
All right, well, I will close then. Thank you for those words. I was going to get Councillor Price to sing I Did It My Way, but instead we will close with the karakia. Inui tātou, kia tau, kia tātou katoa, te atawhai o te tātou ariki a ihi kuraiti, e te araha o te atua, e te whiwhi ngā tahitanga ki te wairua tāpū, aki, aki, aki. Amene. Kia ora.